Peace and love, family. How is everyone doing tonight? Thank you all for joining us on another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate African minds by reading one unit of work at a time. Oh my lighting is awful. Family, my name is Lady La Poete Speaks, aka Lima Njai. In order to join the panel or to listen to the discussion, you can go to ladylapoetespeaks.com, click the Blueprint for Black Power tab, and then scroll down to the appropriate chapter and click the link that applies to you. I am the author of Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1. Reflections of a Misplaced African, Volume 2 will be available later this year, family. If you don't have your copy, you can get it at ladylapoetespeaks.com. If you would like it in digital form, you can get that on Amazon through Kindle. We're going to let the rest of the panel introduce themselves. Peace and love. Thanks for joining us.
Peace and love, family. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as dr.maat. I am an adjunct faculty over at the School of Engineering at Morgan State University and also the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of Meltrek, which is a children's educational animated series. I'm happy to be on this panel, sis. I'm delighted to announce that tonight we will be reading the last chapter of Blueprint for Black Power, chapter 31. And I just want to say, you know, I'm so proud of everyone on this panel who made a commitment and who made a commitment to reading the book and also participating in the weekly discussions. So I'm proud of you guys, and I want to thank you guys, you know, for committing to this endeavor. Because I mean, it is essentially we're giving up our Sundays. You know, like Sundays, a lot of us on this panel, we have families, we have other obligations, but you gave up your Sunday to read a book and to impart your ideas to the community. So I just want to thank you, panel members, for doing so. I also want to just let the listening audience know that I'm proud of you, folks who have been tuning in week after week to join the discussions and to participate, you know, in the chat room and read the book. And so I'm proud of all of us, you know, in this book, man. This was a heavy text, as Sister Camille said before we went live. I mean, the Blueprint for Black Power, this is an 858-page text. This is the first time in my life that I've read an 858-page book. You may say, Dr. Maat, don't you have a PhD? Yes, I absolutely do have a PhD. I've never read an 858-page book. Never have I. And we got this done within 8 months. Remember, we started our journey on August the 27th, 2017. And today is April the 29th, 2018. So 8 months and 2 days we've been on this journey. So I just want to say that I'm proud of everyone, you know, on the panel, proud of everyone who has been listening live week after week. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to the other panel members.
Oh, peace and Black Power family. My name is Camille Gaynor-Jones. I'm a professional musician, a drummer by trade, producer. I also teach at Drummers Collective in Manhattan, and it's an honor to be here to sit on this illustrious panel with my sisters and brothers. And I really learned a lot from this experience, and I'd like to thank everyone that has joined us on, you know, giving up their Sundays, and really appreciate being here. And, you know, thank you for having me. Ashe.
Ashe, Queen.
What it do? What it do? Listen, I'm going hard tonight because we've been going hard for a few weeks, months on this right here. You feel me? Blueprint for Black Power. And we do honor the ancestor and the others who laid the foundation for us to continue to make Black excellence what it is. I love this panel, Dr. Maat, and the others who make this happen. And I'm gonna digress because y'all know how I can go. I'm gonna just be quiet. But this last chapter is what's up. That's all I'm gonna say. Peace and Black Power.
Peace and Black Power.
Do the knowledge, Brother Chaos, Brother Travis.
Hey, peace and Black Power. Hotep.
Peace, peace.
Life, prosperity, and health. It's an honor and privilege to be here at the finale. You know what I'm saying? You know, I snuck in today. You know, I had to be in here for the finale. You know, with this Resurgence African Mind book club, reading this sacred text entitled Blueprint for Black Power. You see, and it's been an honor and a privilege to, share this, initiative and great work that our ancestor left for us as a blueprint, and to read with this on this journey of the resurgence of the African mind with these divine African beings right here standing up for the liberation and salvation of African people, working collaboratively and dispelling all of the false narratives that are out here saying that African people can't get along, we can't never unite, we will never unite, and all this other stuff. You saw a resurgence of that African love and true warrior spirit over these past 8 months. This dedication, this commitment, this sacrifice, as Dr. Maat was bringing up, and the resiliency of these strong African women who held it down when us brothers was slit acting a little something. You understand? We was slit acting with the attendants back and forth, but we still was able to share and add and build. So African kings, y'all acknowledge these African queens for that consistency and for that dedication. Yes. And know that with this resounding thing that it's going to happen, whether we are actively participating in this thing or not, brothers, y'all better get it together. You see what I'm saying? Y'all dealing with some Queen and Singer energy up in this joint. When she went off the battle, if your behind was back there when she got back, you understand what it was. So in that spirit, it's an honor and privilege to be here, and love and honor to the panel. I'll pass the mic.
Love and honor to you, King.
Peace, fam. This is Brother Shimsu out of Detroit. I'm kind of eager. This one kind of got me hyped today, dealing with this leadership. So many letdowns with Black leadership with the African families, both the Negro, so-called Negro leadership, and also even the Black Power movements. I'm just eager to hear the panel tonight go in on this leadership. To see you vet the actual leadership that we've had in place since Reconstruction. And are we better off with our leadership? Since after the Reconstruction, we had Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, that era of leadership, and to compare that and contrast that to the leadership today, I'm just eager to. Let's get it going on. Let's get it started.
All right, bet. Mr. Lima.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chaos. I'm sorry, brother.
Yeah, again. This is the Chaos here. And tonight, I joined the panel to conclude a wonderful, huge text that was written by Dr. Amos Wilson back in 1998. As I'm this journey, I think he would envision this book being read through this outlet 20 years from now to be put to use in the times we live in now, which is more needed than ever. For any movements move forward, there has to be a real set blueprint. The so-called globalist / harsh economic competitive world. And our people I'm convinced and have faith that we have the ability to compete at our goddamn level again. We could probably push forward our minds, right? We could, do a lot of great things, wonderful things at a much faster, accelerated rate. So I have confidence that what has been read tonight and from what was read months ago, that find dialogue. They're going to answer these lectures for YouTube in the RAM Book Club. So excited. I'm ready to begin.
All right. Well, before we get started, Queen, I just want to ask the panel this one by one, and let's not be long-winded because we're going to jump right in. And I know that a lot of us have a lot to say, so I don't want to, take up too much time. But I want to pose the question to the panel: do you all, starting with Sister Alima, do you all feel like this text lived up to his name? Do you think that Dr. Amos Wilson, our great ancestor, do you think that he gave us the blueprint for Black Power.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I said that's without question. That's without question. I'm telling you. I think
Most definitely.
I mean
After reading this book,
go ahead, brother.
dream. This was his dream for all his works with our children, from adults. He knows it to draw a real structured blue attain power, because he knows for us to get ourselves out of a situation, we have to be able to attain power. The way it's about around it. We could talk we want. We could talk about that, but in the world we live in, nothing is shared, nothing is given. You have to fight for everything. You have to take what is yours. You have to attain power. Without power, you are considered dead.
That's right.
Because power gives life to everything.
That's right. I just feel like the name really, the name of the text, the text definitely lived up to its name. You know how people write a lot of books, you know, and then you read the title and you go through the, you know, the contents of the book. You're like, you know, I hear you, but this was one of those books where you walk away from it and you're like, wow, he really did give us a blueprint. You know, he provided a lot of strategies and different tools that will, if applied properly and effectively, definitely will garner power for the Black community. Like I walked away understanding, you know, some of those strategies, and so I just give thanks, you know, for this text. And as Brother Knowledge Born stated, this is a sacred text. You know, we look around and it's, to me, I feel like we venerate the works of other people. We need to venerate the works of our people. This is like, I don't want to even say this is a Bible, but this is a sacred text. You know, we should have all Black families across the diaspora, all African families, you know, in the States, across the diaspora, on the continent, should have this text in their homes. You know, they should have this text in their homes, and not only have it, but read it, apply it, and teach it to your children. Teach it to your children. So anyway, Lima, go ahead and kick it off, sis. I'm sorry. I'm really feeling some type of way today.
Okay, family. So we're kicking off chapter 31, the crisis of leadership. We talk about assimilation, the dilemmas of assimilation, Black neoconservatism, Black national leadership, why Black nationalism, and much, much more. So let's get into it. Leaders and followers. Baba starts it off by telling us that the primary source of problems which plagues the African community is powerlessness. You know, he's said this over and over. He said that powerlessness is the source of the host, that also it also affects African peoples all over the diaspora. Power is essential for all living things.
That's right.
Define power not as property or entity or possession, but as a relationship in which two or more persons tap motivational basis in one another and bring varying resources to bear in the process to perceive power as drawing a vast range of human behavior in its orbit. That's pretty much what power does. Thus, according to Burns, social power, as Baba spoke of before, is in essence collective and involves two essentials: intentionality, purpose and motive, and resources. Power involves dynamic relationships between power holders and recipients, and the motives and resources they utilize in their efforts to achieve mutual or individual goals. African-American leaders in their relationship is what they're going to focus on specifically in this chapter, the relationship to the community and whether their interaction leads to empowerment or disempowerment. Leadership over human beings is exercised when persons with certain motives and purposes mobilize in competition or conflict with others, institutional, political, psychological, or other resources so as to arouse, engage, and satisfy the motives of followers. Leaders with motive and power bases tap followers' motives in order to realize the purpose of both leaders and followers. Leadership is exercised in a condition of conflict or competition in which leaders contend in appealing to the motive basis of potential followers. Page 826, leaders are a particular kind of power holder. Like power, leadership is relational, collective, and purposeful. Leadership shares with power the central function of achieving purpose.
Let me see. So what Sister Lima just described was leader. And when I read these definitions, sis, of of a leader, I was sitting there thinking to myself, Sister Alima, you know, how many leaders do we really have? I mean, you know what I'm saying? That actually fit this definition.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's saying that leadership, that the needs of the people and the goals. Sister Alima, can you hear me?
I hear you, sis.
Oh, okay. You know, it's saying that the leaders, the wants and needs and the aspirations and expectations of the leaders and followers are one and the same.
Right.
But I haven't seen that. I mean, I haven't seen it. Not anything contemporary. I haven't. You know, it seems like there's a huge mismatch in the Black community when you think of like the needs and wants and aspirations, the expectations of the leaders versus those of their followers. I mean, you get what I'm saying? It's like a huge mismatch. And so Dr. Amos Wilson tells us that leadership, unlike naked power wielding, is thus inseparable from the followers' needs and goals, right? So these people who come before us and claim to be our leaders, you know, they have our needs and goals in mind, you know, when they come before us and profess to be leaders of the Black community. You know, I would say that they don't, that a huge majority of them don't. Go ahead, Brother Impo. I see you nodded, King.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. You know what's interesting with this whole situation with Bill Cosby? I remember when we were coming up, anyone that was on the Black screen, the majority of African Americans in this country anyway, considered those persons to be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that we can see what has happened to Cosby is kind of a reflection of what we're talking about today. Just because now, and I know this is it's speaking to the ignorance of our people when we do put, just because somebody is on screen, that we put them on that pedestal. But you can see that has happened, even though they were in front of the cameras. The media, anytime there was something going on in the Black communities across the country, they would always go to these particular persons that were on screen, if you will, and throw the microphone in front of their face as if they spoke to the collective. And it was not the case. I mean, they were never fighting against white supremacy. It was almost just to sound good, sound cliche, throw a couple quotes out and this and that. But we used to hail those persons like, oh man, this is, you know, Bill Cosby, you know, from the 70s, the 80s, this is our guy. You know, I mean, we could call the roll. But these persons were never our leaders. They were just figureheads. They were just persons that, you know, Europeans threw up in front of us to make us, you know, to kind of smooth things over. But definitely, there's always been a crisis in leadership. I mean, I'm sure he's going to go deeper here. Even in the spiritual realm, I'm gonna drop the mic right now because there's some issues that we definitely got to deal with even in that.
I want you to hear something that I believe speaks to what you're saying. I think this was Malcolm X. He spoke on it. As a matter of fact, there's a YouTube clip where Malcolm X speaks on Black entertainers being seen as Black leaders.
That's right.
I heard that one. He used also Dick Gregory as a comedian as an example.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play it. Everybody, I'm getting ready to play it right now. Getting ready to play it. Here it is.
Well, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the Black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear. And it is an honor, actually, that they endorsed Dr. Martin Luther King and were against the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's actually an honor. Now, when you say that they also, in the same Newsweek poll magazine, I think the pollster said that he went into the Negro community and asked about the Muslims. And many Negroes in the asked, well, I never heard of the Muslims. Who are they? You know, this is what the file was talking about. Now, when they got down to the rank and file, this was the answers that they got. This is equivalent to the situation in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising, when many frightened whites in Kenya, Africa, would go among the Africans and ask them, what about the Mau Mau? And the African would say, I never heard of them. And the same white man who would ask the African this question and very naively believe what the African said, when he went to bed that night, he would lose his head. And usually the one who took his head was the same African who told him that afternoon he had never heard of the Mau Mau.
Except in the Newsweek poll, they used Negro interviewers.
You'll find sometimes Negroes are as much on guard around Negro interviewers, who usually represent the bourgeois element of Negroes, as they are on guard around whites. Usually Negroes know that when this bourgeois Negro walks through the door, he is not doing something that he's initiated himself, but he's involved in something in which the white man is the absolute author of and has sent him to the Negro community for some information. And when they give that Negro some information, usually they give him the information that they want him to take back to the white man, because that's who he's going to take it back to.
So that was a clip by Malcolm X. That was Malcolm X speaking on Black leaders, and he also spoke about the Black bourgeoisie. And Dr. Amos Wilson is going to talk about the Black bourgeoisie later on in this chapter. So, Brother Mpu, that was in line with what you said. How, you know, we initially looked to entertainers as leaders, and that hasn't changed.
Right.
I mean, you mentioned Bill Cosby, but even today, I mean, you have people who look at Oprah Winfrey and
rappers,
and rappers and Beyonce, yeah, as leaders, as leaders, and these people aren't their goals. It says right here, their wants and needs, aspiration and expectations are a mismatch to yours. It's not. There's a mismatch. These people can't lead you nowhere. But anyway, moving on, he says that in the political arena, in reference to his discussion of leadership, Mao Tung Burns intimates that one of the supreme qualities of the gifted political leader is to understand not only the needs of potential followers, but the way in which those needs could be activated and channeled. Furthermore, Burns implies that the classical role of the great leader is to comprehend not only the existing needs of followers, but to mobilize within them newer motivations and aspirations that in the future will furnish a popular foundation for a new kind of leadership. And when I read the statement, I thought about the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Not only did he identify our needs, and not only did he understand or comprehend our needs, but he actually galvanized us. He mobilized. You get what I'm saying? So it wasn't just, you know, him identifying our needs. He was able to mobilize millions of Black people, you know, to adopt a self-help program. All right. So I immediately thought about Marcus Garvey. I immediately thought about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. These are the people I thought about when I read this statement. Brother Travis, did anybody else come to mind? People that were able to mobilize us by the millions. Anybody?
Malcolm X.
Malcolm. Dr. King.
Dr. King.
Stokely Carmichael.
Stephen Biko over in South Africa.
Yes.
Yes, Stephen Biko. Absolutely. So anyway, he says, Dr. Amos Wilson says the crisis of leadership flow from the intellectual and ideological. He said the crisis of leadership flows from the intellectual and ideological bankruptcy, its wrong-headed sense of purpose or intentionality, its inability to recognize and articulate the fundamental needs of its followers, and its impaired ability to pragmatically satisfy those needs if they were recognized and articulated. Black leadership is presently constituted, precisely operates against the most basic interests. Here, feedback, y'all. Constituted, precisely operates against the most basic interests of the African community. It is therefore unwittingly allied. Oh, it just went off with the inimical forces arrayed against the community. It is imperative that leadership be raised from its ideological foundation so that a new leadership structure capable of realizing the needs of the African community can be constructed on its ruins. He says, essentially, a crisis of leadership occurs when the intentions and needs of leadership are severely mismatched. There we go.
Yep.
The crisis of leadership, and let me underline this. I have it highlighted, but let me go on and underline this. He says that the crisis of leadership occurs when the intentions and needs of leadership are severely mismatched with those of its followers. The intentions of leadership are to a significant degree indicated by its ideological orientations or attitudes in addition to its behavioral history. So in this next section, I'm not going to read it. The cry for new leadership. I mean, we're going to read the section, but I don't have anything on 827. He's just saying, look at where we are. You know, look at the past 40 or 50 years and look at everything that has transpired within this time period and look at where we are today. You know, so while we believe that we've made gains, legislative gains, we're still a very impoverished and powerless people. And that's what he's saying basically on 827. Anybody else have anything on 827? Because that's what I got from it. He's saying, look at over the past 40 years. I mean, nothing has really changed much, even though we've had some legislative success. Nothing's really changed for us.
No, he said saying the same thing on 828 as well. It's just
Right.
more.
Okay, so yeah, so we can move on. 829. He says that the persistent call for leadership in the Black community is a call for help, a call for setting leading person, organizations, ideas. So a lot of people think when you think of leadership, we're looking at this Messiah, right? A lot of people think of a Messiah, but he's saying, look, man, leadership can be a set of leading persons. It can be organizations, ideas, right? And ideas who can provide the community with a sense of unity, definition, direction, power, with a developmental plan, and with the wherewithal to realize its abundant human potential. So leaders don't just, I mean, leaders can be, you know, organizations. It could be people, right? It could be ideas, right? So he talks about that. So then he goes on to say that the most persistent complaints in the community makes concerning its current leadership are that they have either been co-opted by the ruling white regime, are outdated in terms of values, goals, and techniques, are not truly deeply committed to the welfare of the people, are self-centered, self-serving, egocentric, corrupt, out of touch with the current and future realities, timid and cannot recognize the needs of the people or articulate those needs in ways which move the people towards their satisfaction, are intellectually and are not effectively educating the masses and inspiring them to realize the enormous power which lies dormant within themselves. Is that true, panel? These are
yes,
absolutely.
Concerns. These are typically the concerns or the complaints that you hear when people talk about leadership. All right.
yes.
All right. So at the bottom of 829, he says that a people are powered. He says that a people are powered. Here, people are empowered or disempowered by the guiding ideologies of the leaders. I want to say that again. A people are empowered or disempowered by the guiding ideologies of the leaders to whom they pledge allegiance. Though leaders recognize the needs of their followers and are at one with them in terms of their own needs, their choice of inappropriate social political ideologies and goals may bring both themselves and their followers to despair. All right, family. So now he's going to describe three ideological orientations of Black leadership today. They are the assimilationists, the moralists, the neoconservative bourgeoisie, or bourgeoisie, and the cultural nationalists. Does anyone want to take it from here?
The assimilationists, Baba says that the assimilationists is the predominant leadership group in the African American community. Everybody agree?
That's facts. That's facts.
So everybody think we all are familiar with what an assimilationist is. You know, they get in where they can fit in.
Exactly.
Yes, that's pretty much cut and dry what they are. The NAACP is one of the biggest assimilationist organizations that we have here in America.
That's a Black caucus too.
Yes, it is a Black caucus, Queen.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, it is. Although they do seek to establish certain civil rights and things, it is always under the guise of what is most comfortable for the white man.
Right.
There's a clear definition of an assimilationist. Besides seeking to attain full and equal rights, the groups which make up the assimilist leadership establishment, they see the integration of blacks into virtually all social areas as their ultimate social and political goal. Their penultimate goal appears to be that of total psychological, political, economic merging of blacks with whites, of course, to the point where the black community will lose its ethnic identity. And that's what happened. So like the organization or even the representative themselves, they may start off like really black, you know, really pro-black, everything's about black, but the more they assimilate and mix in with whites, it becomes a point where we don't even recognize ourselves anymore. The group doesn't even really look like us anymore, only on the forefront, but nothing that they're actually doing represents the African-American community.
That's a fact.
Facts.
That's a fact.
Robert also talks about the moralistic oriented leadership establishment. He says that the moralistic coloring of this leadership establishment follows from its belief that separation by race is morally reprehensible, that ethnic exclusivity is morally unconscionable. More pertinent, however, is its belief that racism, especially in the form of white supremacy, and all that it implies, represents a fundamentally moral problem, a problem founded on racial prejudice, stereotypes, deviations from Christian ethics, lack of race humanistic entitlement, and moral will. The assimilationist moralistic establishment essentially overlooks the economic rationale for one race dominating another. Consequently, while pursuing legal and legislative remedies for social discriminations, while vigorously protesting racial injustice, this group advocates what Cornell Wells calls the politics of conversion of ethic. In other words, dominant whites must be converted or born again. The fundamental beliefs of the Christian religion, Christian charity, brotherhood, and love of some humanistic equivalent thereof. Politically, the belief is that whites must become true believers in and doers of the word. If this moral goal is achieved, then blacks would be liberated and empowered the same as whites. Thus, it follows from the logic of this ideological orientation that the freedom and well-being of blacks are dependent on the conversion of whites to unconditional humanity through legalistic measures and moralistic appeals to their presumed better nature, and above all, through the redemptive love and self-sacrifice of blacks.
Yep. That was a powerful paragraph. I have like the whole thing highlighted, sis.
Yes.
That was extremely powerful. I mean, oh my gosh. That was extremely powerful.
Because we do have this view that, you know, if only they were morally better, then, you know, things would be better for us.
Right.
But the thing is that most of them believe that they're morally good people. You know, they believe that they're doing things in line with Christian guides or whatever. So I don't see how, you know, that would change anything, because that's what they think anyway.
And they absolutely do, sis. I mean, the KKK called themselves Christians.
Right.
You know? Still do. Yeah, still do. Right.
Good Christians.
Right.
Good God-fearing, law-abiding Christians.
Well, that's because their book is in line with their objective.
That's right.
They handle their family. They handle their family business, and they got their fraternal ties. You got to understand that.
Yes, and the Bible is a war book. It's their war book.
Yes,
that's what they use.
They got all locked in with their family to ensure that, you know, even if one gets sacrificed, their family taken care of. You understand? So if one got to go or one go to the graveyard, whatever, they got their family business tight. Even if they don't honor their family, they smart enough to know what inheritance is. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, it's more I want to say, but I want the conversation.
But John Henry Clark hit it on the money. He says that we are Puritans when it comes to religions. We are out Muhammad, we are Pope to Pope. But other people hide their political agenda in their religions. The white man utilizes his religion for political expediency. That's what Dr. Clark was trying to say to us.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Look at what them Puritans did, though. You know, with the Inquisition. You understand what I'm saying? So they was really
they were still right using their political agenda.
They was drowning their mamas. They was drowning their mamas and setting their own mamas on fire, their daughters. You understand what I'm saying? Their wives. So understand what those terms mean to, you know, what they really mean. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
So
what the ideology is mean, what Dr. Clark was trying to say is that they about the essence of a particular spiritual path. You're right about the Puritans. The Puritans was the ones who wiped out the Native Americans. They was part of that process.
Right.
Wiping out the Native Americans. What Dr. Clark was trying to say is that we practice the religion just purely based on our belief in God and trying to get a spiritual connection. Others are utilizing the spiritual path for political expediency. They hide their hidden agendas into dominating people, but utilizing a false facade of Christianity or any other religion to hide their real agenda.
and that's the power of assimilation. The power of assimilation is that you get engulfed by that. And in that process, you know, it goes along with you're thinking that you're being the best possible employee that you can be. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So even at the behest of your brother, hey, Info came in 10 minutes late. I'm going to report him. You understand what I'm saying? You see how the whole situation begins to deteriorate and break down, and they create systems around that, and they benefit off of that. They know that you're going to be the one to go tell it, just like, Bob Malcolm spoke about. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so that whole situation, this is really where the crisis is. Normally the crisis would bring out some folks will be mobilized by it. You see what I'm saying? They had no idea that when they firebombed Dr. King's house, that the folks said, we're going to march on Washington. As a response to that, as a response to those, that the church being firebombed before, young African, girls lost their life. They took to the streets, and there wasn't nothing nonviolent about that march until they met up with them folks and they turned it nonviolent. They was tearing them streets up and tearing, some of our enemies' asses up on the way up. And then they met up with the Big Six, and the Big Six turned it into a we shall overcome, cashing the check speech type of situation. See what I'm saying? So we got to understand that dynamic, and because we get false narratives, about ourselves, we can buy into it, and so these narratives that are being shown, they get, they marry up with a reality that we see. We see a reality of ourselves, as Bob Amos called powerlessness. You see what I'm saying? So we think like this is business as usual, and this is all it's ever going to be, and we ain't never stood up, and all of that. These are all false narratives. You see what I'm saying? We know damn well if you mess with anybody in our family, we had something for you. You see what I'm saying? So, but that's not going to get promoted. What's going to be promoted is these other types of things. You see what I'm saying? So that leaves your mentality that you can look at yourself. You hear black folks out there when they come to their mama, they ready to go to war with their mama, but when it comes to that policeman, you talking about, hey, don't worry, it ain't worth it, man. Just put your hands up. Like they won't shoot you with your hands up. You understand what I'm saying? So that type of ideology breeds in the sickness, that assimilation, this moral thing. You ain't dealing with, in the words of Dr. Collins, he said, you talking about civil rights and human rights. He said the cracker ain't never been civil, and he damn sure ain't never been right. he said he ain't been too human, and he ain't been too right. You understand? So when you got that type of mindset, you understand what true first law of nature is, self-preservation, and you align yourself and akin yourself with folks that got that understanding, and they got the skills and the talents to be able to bring those things out.
I just want to add real quick, not to belabor this whole point, but the paragraph that Dr. Maat just finished reading, the sick psychology of the black mind that's been conditioned to this foolishness, and we're going to see it in Dr. Caban's work when we carry on. He talks a little bit about this, is that we're so conditioned to instead of exposing the enemy for who he is, we try to relate or credit or bring him in, fit him in, when we really should be like, no, get the hell out. We don't want nothing to do with you. We don't even want his tentacles in our soil, nowhere around our families, period.
Burn them at the stake.
Okay, period. But and you can see in that paragraph, we always trying to figure out, well, how is it that we can make him fit in? How is it that we could validate him or her you know,
Deep.
and it is, man. It's so deep. But like Dr. Clark said, we should never open the doors. You know, in back in ancient Kemet, we should never open the doors.
But you know what's so scary about Condoleezza Rice? You know, the brother Knowledge Born brought up the Birmingham, the women, the young girls who got killed in that Birmingham church. She grew up with the girls and knew the girls, and how she turned out. You know, it just amazes me. But yeah, Condoleezza Rice grew up with the girls that were killed and were friends with them that were murdered.
Wow.
Yep.
She was in that bush too long, brother Travis. She was in that bush too long. You understand? You can't be in that bush and don't get infected. You understand?
That's right. That's right, though. That's right.
I mean, well, you know, a lot of us want to be loved by white people and not respected. You know, their love means a lot to many of us. You know,
their love, their acceptance, sis.
Yes.
I agree, Queen.
That's a hellified abusive relationship. You know, what's love got to do with it? You better go back and understand it and see what's love.
That's that Stockholm. That's that Stockholm syndrome. You know, back in the 70s. You know, they loved those persons that was robbing them and had held them hostage. You know, and was fighting off the police when the police came to rescue them. You know, it's a sick psychology right there. You know, that's how powerful the mind. That's how sick the mind can be if it's not in its right perception.
Right.
It's weaponized. It's a weaponized mind state, and they're using it for they glory. You know, we ain't got our sleeper cells out there doing in the things that you're supposed to do. You know, some folks it's necessary to do that. Everybody in Iraq ain't got a vest on. They choose some folk and say, hey, we're going to take care of your family. We need you to get in this vehicle and understand what time it is. You see what I'm saying? And them folks go.
Yeah.
They go. What they told them kamikaze pilots to get in a plane with no engine. You understand what I'm saying? You got to grow some type of folk. Them folks is necessary. You understand? Them folks is necessary.
Well, you know, they're in their right culture. They're in their culture. They're in their right culture. You know, it's like there's that saying. You know, people be saying like crabs in a barrel, but the reason crabs act that way because they ain't supposed to be in a barrel.
Yeah, they're not in their natural habitat.
I seen a documentary on the Kazakami. They families are highly honored in Japan. The descendants of those, they were showing how the Kazakami, their family members were on there. They're quite wealthy and well respected in the Japanese culture.
But see, we don't do that. We don't do that with the families of our martyrs and stuff like that. We don't do that. You know, you have families of people who've done great things and they die with no money. We don't take care of our people. We don't. We put out elders. We put them in nursing homes. We forget about them. We bootleg the works. You know, we don't honor and venerate them like that.
That's right. That's right. Look at all the people like Sundiata and other various. Herman Bell been in jail 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And we don't. Our youth don't know about them.
No. Matulu Shakur, Mumia, none of them. Like you said, Sundiata, Coley, none of them. We don't write them. No one writes them or honors them or do anything. Well, I'm not gonna say no one. You have pockets of us, but collectively, what have we done for those political prisoners who died in prison? You know, who are still in prison? What do we do for them? What do we do for their families collectively? Nothing.
Nothing.
And these are people who sacrificed their lives for Black liberation, and we do nothing for them. What about Fred Hampton? Didn't at the time that he was murdered, his wife was pregnant? Was she pregnant?
That's right.
You know, I know you got Fred Hampton Jr. He's out here. I actually had the opportunity to speak with him a few times on a telephone, and he wanted me. I know he has a podcast show that he does, and he wanted to bring me on, and we never was able to agree on a date. But I know he's still out here doing some things. But how are we looking after these people? Or people and their descendants, or what are we doing? Nothing.
You see how they shoot up Fred Hampton's? They got to change his gravestone every year. White supremacists come in and shoot up the gravestone. They showed he had on his Facebook page of Fred Hampton Jr. his father's tombstone. How they came out there and desecrated the grave, shot up the gravestone, and so they typically have to change that gravestone almost every year.
And they do the same thing to Emmett Till. Did you see his memorial got shot up? His memorial gets shot up every couple of years. Wow. And it's at a point where the state is saying that, we can no longer continue to keep spending funds trying to replace it. They do the same thing to Emmett Till's memorial. Same thing. But let's move on, y'all. Let's move on. So he says at the bottom of 831, he says neither, and this is the fact, neither the NAACP, Urban League, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or the institutional Black church has proposed or sought to realize ethnically based social, cultural, political, economic, technological, military development plans for African peoples. That's a fact. Things essential to their survival and advancement. It says, in fact, these organizations have a history of opposing and seeing the drafting and execution of such plans as racist, nationalist, separatist, and self-segregating. While this opposition may point to a lack of confidence in the idea that such developmental plans are intellectually and organizationally achievable or desirable for Africans, it appears to be motivated more by the unfounded belief that the inevitable assimilation of Blacks and whites will make such efforts on the part of Blacks unnecessary. By becoming indistinguishable from whites, Blacks would thereby automatically inherit the power, prestige, privilege, and material advantages whites already enjoy. Thus, the pursuit of power by Blacks, which would require the full active development of ethnically based organizations and institutions, is perceived as counterproductive, as hindrance to the racial merger, the supreme goal of Black assimilationists. All right. So Black assimilationists, what they really want is complete integration, right, with whites, and they want full participation in this European system, you know, and it's their belief, and it is their belief that this will empower us politically, economically, and socially, but it won't. But it won't. But it won't. So we can move on, y'all, to the dilemma of assimilationist leadership on page 833. If you guys have anything left or anything you want to add from page 832? No?
No, we can move on.
Okay. Well, I did see something at the bottom where he says, while the Black community has acquired the right to vote, a substantial modicum of individual liberties and civil rights, it has not yet achieved the fundamentally important ability to effectively influence the government or private corporate interests to live accordingly to their egalitarian credos and to satisfy the economic and social needs of the largest majority of Black people. So we run around here, you know, year after year, you got to get out and vote, or you got to do this. So we have the freedom to do that. But we are still a very powerless people. And that's a fact. So yes, you have the right to vote. You can vote for the president. You can vote for different people, right? And you can do a lot of things, right? You have a lot of individual, as he says, you have a modicum of individual liberties and civil rights, but yet we are still a very powerless people, and that's a fact. So let's move on to the dilemma of assimilationist leadership. Do you want to kick it off, Sister Camille?
Sure. The dilemma of assimilationist leadership. The fourth line rather. The achievement of Black power involves a revolutionary confrontation with and neutralization of the white power establishment, with which the assimilationists seek total acceptance.
Come on, sis.
The avoidance of this very confrontation motivates assimilationists to seek refuge in the pursuit of a fantasized raceless society. For assimilationists, true freedom is the freedom of a mythical raceless society. And I mean, you hear y'all folks all day talking about that they're just a human, and you know, there's no such thing as race and all this other crazy stuff. Apparently, the assimilationists have never stopped. The raceless society may never come into existence. That racism, right?
It may not ever happen. Racism may be. Go ahead, sis. Finish reading, sis. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That racism may be a permanent feature of human nature and socio-political relations. They evidently have never considered the possibility that even if a raceless society were to become an actuality in the far distant future, the African race, given its current vulnerabilities, may not be around to enjoy its benefits. And that's what I'm saying. It's annihilation when you believe in fantasy like that. If the assimilationists could at least hypothesize the permanence of racism, they may accept the rationality of seeking to ensure the ability of African peoples to survive by developing their social, cultural, political, economic, military, and technological abilities to do so. Top of 834, the assimilationists obviously have underestimated the tenacity of whites to maintain the fundamental racial status quo. I'm going to read that again. The assimilationists obviously have underestimated the tenacity of whites to maintain the fundamental racial status quo, which has proved to be of such obvious and opulent material benefit to them, and has also provided them the exhilarating psychic benefits of racial superiority.
Yo, that's the whole, that's their trick right there.
Exactly.
That's their trick. Oh, go ahead. Bye.
Man. I mean, they got our folks so confused, it's like they don't operate in that manner. Their whole system is based off of race.
That's right. That's right.
They did not seriously consider and prepare, apparently, for the possibility that whites would vigorously play the political and economic game of taking back with one hand what they gave with the other. A game where just as blacks are permitted to enter the rules are suddenly changed and blacks must protest again to have the rules changed anew. Woo!
But isn't that true? Now, isn't that true, panel?
Man.
Then we see that, like, we were,
that's that Indian giving they be doing all the time.
Yeah, like the whole Emancipation Proclamation, we were free, we were no longer slaves. I believe that we were given the right to vote. Then remember, it turned around in the 1960s. We had to do the voters. I think it was the Voters' Right, the Voters' Rights Act or the Voting Act or something of 1964. What is that, Brother Travis? Voters' Rights Act of 1964, I believe, right?
That's correct.
Correct. But we already had the right to vote once we were later on, not exactly when we were emancipated, but later on we did have the right to vote. But remember, Jim Crow came and prevented us from voting, and then they had to come along. So they gave us something, like he said, and then we had to protest to get, they took it, and then we had to protest to get it right back. So we've seen this.
That's right. And they use little games.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, sister.
Oh, I was just going to say that they just replace it, like they'll give you the illusion that they're giving you something. So when they supposedly, freed us, they had Reconstruction, Jim Crow, on and on. So there's always, another obstacle for you to overcome because they really don't want that. Because they, my thing is they fought and killed for what they have. They're not going to just give it to you out of the kindness of their hearts.
That's right.
Go ahead, Brother Travis. What were you getting ready to say, King?
I was talking about how they use even after the voting rights. You can't if you can't read the particular document or you can't quote it verbatim. That's the kind of stuff they were doing in the South to block voting. Now they use if you have a criminal record,
right,
you can't vote. They find loopholes to suppress the black vote. That's what they do.
Absolutely, they absolutely do. Brother Chaos.
I was about to say, think about it like this. Our ancestors fought and killed the oppressors back in the 1700s. And that make the enemy have to change strategies so he can give you something of an illusion. I really don't want to give it up anyway, but people have to force them to create something. That's why you see all loopholes even back then to today. Because if you're not applying pressure, they're not going to do shit. They'd rather keep you in chains for all they care. But they can't do that because if you put a million black people in it, they're going to rebel and they're going to probably get very violent. So what they do, they play intellectual warfare games, mind games. Say, I give you this, but behind closed doors, I'm not really doing that. I'm writing something else. This is how they operate. This is how they keep in a sense of power and control. And people don't see that that's how the game works. Because they know that regardless how small you population or great population, they got to keep you up as, because if you come to the term to go back the ways how it got to this point, they can't handle that. So they have to keep playing. That's why I tell people many times, and I know Dawan Yesrel said the best. It's a European is a coward. Because if he really feel bold that he's that control, why play all these games? You have to play these games because you are the minority. and you cannot deal with us or compete us at a high level. So you have to keep running these mind games on our people, because people just don't really see the bigger picture. And that's all I'm gonna say.
No, I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. That was deep. That was deep. So in the middle of 838, he says that Sidney Whelm describes this new form of invisible racism, right? So they claim not to be that. They say that we live in a post-racial society, right? That's the claim right now, that we presently live in a post-racial society. So you have people arguing that racism no longer exists. They say you guys had Obama. Obama was in office, right? You guys can work wherever you want to work. You can live wherever you live. So they say, we can't, so there's no racism. You have people who actually believe this foolishness. But anyway, so Sidney Whelm describes this new form, he says, as invisible racism. And so he says, as legal retribution seemingly preclude racial segregation and discrimination in education, transportation, military service, housing, and so forth, whites turn to other ways of depriving the Negro people. The new efforts are designed not to subjugate or oppress the Black minority, but rather isolate it. That's what he says, that they've isolated us. He says at the top of 835, he says the Negro moves from the plantations to the ghetto as the nation concedes equality on economic terms and upholds racism. What white Americans have not fully understood, but what the Negroes can never forget. The report of the National Advisory Commission of Civil Disorders cogently testifies, is the white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. White America intends to forget about its Black minority. So they're saying instead of subjugating us and oppressing us, the new racism was to just isolate us, to exclude us in housing, to exclude us from certain economic opportunities, right? Just to isolate us. Yeah. And that's when they created the ghettos. Sister
Benign neglect. What were you saying, sis?
I said, you want to add to that, sis?
I was saying that, just wanted to add that that's called benign neglect. That's their policies since Bill Clinton, benign neglect of the community. Just act like we don't exist.
Exactly, sis. So he tells us at the bottom, he says, so the ultimate goal of assimilation is, and it's like Sister Alima said, it's a lot of reiteration. He's just saying that they want to create a raceless society. That is their heart's desire. But he says at the bottom, ultimately, the assimilationists must destroy the very vehicle they utilize to achieve the goals for which they strive. Evident throughout the history of the civil rights movement, the assimilationists find it necessary to use Black power in the form of organized, Black-based protests, marches, boycotts, class lawsuits, sit-ins, affirmative action programs, block voting, and so forth to achieve what they perceive as assimilated equality. So in other words, the achievement of racial assimilation requires the use of Blackness as a basis for organization. Consequently, the assimilationists find themselves in the untenable position of trying to preserve their political cake while eating it too. All right. I know that in the middle of this paragraph in 836, Sister Camille, I think the only point that he's trying to get across on this page is that urban ghettos are the base for Black power or Black political power per se. So he's saying that a lot of us, a lot of the assimilationists and even like the upper class, the bourgeoisie, he says that they wrote off, the Black underclass. But Dr. Amos Wilson is saying here that the ghettos, that the Black underclass is really the base for Black power. Is that what you took away from it, Sister Camille?
Absolutely. Yes, I have that highlighted as well.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the Black conservatism. All right. You want to go in?
Yeah, I'll take it. Oh, I had a lot highlighted.
Okay, go ahead.
Did anyone else want to read? I mean, basically, okay, in terms of their ideological or direct organizational influence on the political and economic character and behavior of the African American community as a whole, as a nascent group of Black American ideologues commonly referred to as Black conservatives. Black neoconservatives does not merit discussion here. This group of theorists and polemicists has no significant organization or constituency in the African American community to speak of. That's a fact. But Black neoconservatism has defined itself in opposition to constant call of assimilationists for government intervention and largest in the uplift of the socially depressed and politically oppressed Black masses. It also opposes the belief that government and industry should make special efforts on behalf of Blacks in reparation for harm done in the past resulting from white racism. This stance by the Black neocon establishment does not in any way stand in the way of its members or advocates' voracious pursuit and acceptance of any high offices offered by both government and industry, whether in the name of affirmative action, quotas, or just plain help wanted. Woo! Black neoconservatives have been ably assisted in this regard by white neoconservatives, conservatives, and crypto racists due to their ideological compatibility with the values and goals of the white supremacist establishment. Woo. This has led to their receiving favorable exposure in the mainstream print and electronic media, to their being appointed to influential offices and professional positions such as heads of the EEOC, the Civil Rights Commission, and to the U.S. Supreme Court under conservative administrations, and to department chairs at prestigious universities. These well-paid propagandists themselves, the prime beneficiaries of precisely those maximum social, educational, and professional advances resulting from civil rights legislation, paradoxically oppose the very collectivistic civil rights activities which have made their occupational positions. Thesis is that the current conditions of Africans at home and abroad is no longer the result of historical or contemporary machinations of white supremacy, racial bigotry, and discrimination.
That's what they believe.
Woo, yeah, so they do, man. They crazy. They dangerous bunch of people.
Facts.
They have to be called out at all times because they are dangerous and they will cause out annihilation.
Well, let's call some out, sis. So when I read this, and I'm glad that you read this entire paragraph. Well, actually, this paragraph was long, and I'm glad that you read it. I actually had the entire paragraph highlighted, but you know who came to mind? Well, there were a few people that came to mind when I read this and thought about the conservatives. I thought about the
Ben Carson,
the U.S. I thought, yep, Ben Carson is one. Then you have the U.S. Representative, the U.S. Florida representative, Kimberly Daniels. Remember when she said this? Listen to this. You remember this? Listen to this.
Thank God for slavery.
Hold on, let me.
Oh my God!
I remember that. Yeah.
No, let me play that, Queen. Let me play that. This is what came to mind. This is what this woman said. Hold on, here we go.
I thank God for slavery. I thank God for the crack house. For the crack house, come on, somebody. God wouldn't have never been able to use me how he can use me now. And if it wasn't for slavery, I might be somewhere in Africa worshiping a tree.
Huh? I'm not even going to keep on playing it.
Yo, hold wait a minute. Listen, that is, let me tell you something, and that is a primary thought function of a lot of people in the church. That's the first thing they be saying. Yeah, you know, the Africans, you know, they worship everything, the trees, the grass, the sky, blah, blah, blah. And then they, you know, tie that into some type of reason why, you know, they needed that they're thankful for Jesus Christ. I'm like, y'all are out of your minds. The reason I was like, you wasn't no Christians on the slave ship, fool. Yo, it's like
that's like people saying that they're grateful that they got beat by their parents because it made them the person that they are today. Really?
Yeah, that's that slavery mindset, you know.
Same mentality, like, oh, really? Somebody beating the hell out of you. That's what saved your life. Okay, all right. I mean, hey, I ain't going whatever works. Whatever works.
I mean, it's just a lot of, it's like a butter biscuit eating brigade. It's like, oh man, the stuff that comes out of people's mouths. Kamala Harris too. They're trying to push her. Kamala Harris too. They trying to push her on us next. You know, but she was like the head cop in LA, man. She locked up so many black people. Please.
Goodness gracious.
Goodness. Ladies.
Yes.
You know, I remember listening to that, and that's me think say, you know, the sickness of this is the result of mental illness with my author, and makes you feel very comfortable of your subjugation. When I first saw that video that Dr. Maat played, and I think on what she said is like the average. Even Ben Carson was on stage saying we talking about said there are people where I guess what they call it, citizens or wherever people that travel here free will to come up here build America, and it tells me say where you niggas come from. Do you know you are dead? You're really, I mean, really, you are now not only physically dead, but you are spiritually dead. There is no coming back. The only thing that it says, you know, you go 6 feet under. Because that's what comes on mind. Say, you know, there's so much cleaning house to do. And I say, it's like this country, and that's country generally, it builds and manufactures coons, niggas, and people that are against people that's really trying to fight for actual freedom and liberation. We got them by the thousands, people. It's like this, and I think about this. I think Amos said this best on his Facebook Live. He said, unless we decide to cut off the machine and we start giving our children to the enemy, we are just voluntarily manufacturing our own demise.
That's what we're doing. That's what they
because there's no way hell no adult at her age to talk about she don't want to go talking about worshiping trees. And I said, wait, hold on. And I was about to cuss. Have you read any of these books? Have you read The Religious Instruction of the Negro? Have you read anything that they tell you they beat this into you? Even the book by Kamal Taste Magooly say How to Make a New Christian.
No, they don't read
no
book.
What the hell
they read the Bible. They don't even read
the Bible. Yeah, I know. But I say, and it makes me feel say, I think most of them don't really seek anything further besides what they go into institution and the Bible. And beyond that, if you bring anything, a thought or something to look at for them, or the information that's out there, they'll look at you as crazy. They say, I don't want to know all that. That's that black shit. I don't want to read that black fucking shit. And so you better get into this black because you are, like I said before, you are spiritually and physically dead. When you make statements like, I feel comfortable making statements like that. The whole world watching you. And then when people watch back here and they see those TV shows, when they see people like her make those statements, they say, my God, is that what they feel? That they're justified, that they should be subjugated? You just give them the open door and say, well, you want to go back to change again. So if you feel that way, well, anyway, I don't want to hold more time because that just bothered me.
Yeah, man. When I heard that, I was like, I heard that about a month or two ago. Oh man, I was baffled. I mean, I wasn't baffled, but I was like, wow, really? You're an adult. You're supposed to be a grown woman, and that's what you think.
And I mean, and look, sis, she's not the only person that have made comments like this. You have the other chick, Candace Owens.
Oh yeah.
Her, she's like a conservative commentator, and she says things like this, and quote, it's embossing. It says, you black people, you're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans. Quote, she said, black people are a bunch of whiny toddlers pretending to be oppressed for attention. She said, black men getting shot by the police isn't about racism. And these are things that this woman has said, at one time or another. So these are the people, man, that like you said, are before us, the whole neo-conservatives. And like you said, there's a whole list of them. We haven't even scratched the surface. I mean, we mentioned Kimberly Daniels, Candace Owens, Ben Carson, and who was the other chick that you named, Sister Camille?
Kamala Harris.
Yeah, Kamala Harris.
She's going to try to run for the presidency.
Oh, Lord.
So we definitely need to be aware of her.
That's a hybrid. And ladies, have y'all noticed that the people that are put in position to run for president are one of two things. Either they come from a biracial stock or some
right.
real
That's the new
heavy
thing that they're pushing too.
Yeah.
And she's married to a white man. That's what they're trying to push this whole narrative. They put people up there that are not going to, either their parents are white, so they're not going to fight or say that there's white supremacy because of one of their parents or their spouse or whatever. And they haven't been raised in the black in
struggle.
Coming up.
That's why they were so comfortable in office, because his mom was white. They wouldn't have put a black man.
Exactly.
No, not at all, sis.
Exactly.
Remember,
they want to take somebody who was a descendant of slaves and put them in the White House. No way.
And isn't there a father like an Arab, part Arab? Last time I checked, I gotta double check.
Kamala?
Yeah.
Her mother's an Indian.
Yeah.
And her father is supposed to be Jamaican.
Yeah. So it's
raised by her mother.
So like I said before, and if she's Democrat, that's something they're gonna try engineer right now in this next election to push, because people already don't like to listen. And she's easy. No matter if they're gonna put the first black woman, they're gonna use a hybrid woman as the first president of this country. They're not gonna put no actual European woman, because hell, Hillary fucked it up, and they have no other woman they could put in front. So they said, let's put this one here. They already accepted Obama, so hell, we're gonna put a woman in next to keep the game. Come here, it's all a game.
I don't
foresee them
putting a woman in office.
I'm just about to. Yeah, I'm with Sister Alima. I don't see it. Not in this patriarchal system. I just don't see it.
Right, I don't see it. And then, not to mention, when it comes to international ties, internationally, most countries, they don't respect women on that high political level. So I couldn't see a woman being able to do business like.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope.
I'm hoping. I'm being a realist, man, and I think in this patriarchal system, and Europeans, I mean, just knowing their history, I mean, they've never elevated their women.
The Iraq president,
you know.
They don't want to talk to her.
Since you breaking up, Sister Lily, you breaking up.
Yeah, I think she's driving. But anyway, let's move on, y'all. 8:39.
Yeah, I know. I'm in the car.
The middle of the paragraph. The argument by conservatives on behalf of a new colorblind American society asserts that since the middle 1960s, we can talk only of an American racist past, legalized housing segregation, lynching, segregated public and private schools, and no longer of an American racist legacy in the form of persistent or vestigial attitudes, values, norms, and informal practices that prevail within a variety of institutions, economic, social, and political, in our post-civil rights era. In short, conservatives, black and white, claim that through legislation and judicial decisions, America's culture of racism has been vanquished, leaving no meaningful and significant traces and practices.
And that's a lie.
That's a bold-faced lie.
Bold-faced lie. Go ahead, sis. Read that right there. I had that highlighted. It is ironic.
840. Yes, I have that highlighted as well. It is ironic that these advocates of self-help among Black Americans are themselves a group of client scholars, mercenary intellectuals, go ahead, attached to the umbilical cords of the financial and institutional bastions of conservative white American power establishment like the Heritage, Scaife, Bradley, and Olin foundations. One of the major functions of these institutions is to fund the work of both Black and white critics of Black struggles for civil rights, racial equality, and affirmative action, and of the Afrocentric movement. Consequently, Black neocons essentially serve to rewrite traditional white conservative and racist ideological canards, trying to win for them legitimacy in the African American community by making it appear that these warmed over, self-serving white intentions originate from their own independent minds. The central function and role of the black neoconservative is to put a black face on white power.
That's a fact. I wish I had that sign at a TV effect bomb blow. You know,
that is like
just repeat that last line again, sis. The central function.
My goodness. Okay. The central function and role of the black neoconservative is to put a black face on white power.
That's a fact. That's a fact. So he says, if a central tendency of black and white neoconservative argument can be discerned, it may best be defined in terms of an extreme white American mythological, individualistic, blaming the victim ideological orientation. All right. So, this goes into the whole ideology of individualism. And Dr. Amos Wilson actually spent, I believe, a chapter on ideology of individualism. And in the rest of this, on the rest of this page, he talks about how individualism is used to justify the American culture of inequality. So instead of saying that our problems are because of the social structure, they'll say that the problems you have economically, socially, politically, they're because of you. So they'll blame you instead of saying, oh, it may be because of the impact of the social structure upon, the individual. They'll blame you and say it's something going on with you personally. And that's why you haven't been able to achieve your goals. That's why you haven't been able to prosper in this system, because something is going on with you. Something is wrong with you. And so at the bottom of 841, he says, let me see. He says, while more sophisticated versions of this argument, ones preferred by liberal social scientists, may attribute individual and group failure to psychodynamic makeup, cultural deprivation, orientation, family background, socialization practices, educational, cognitive, and or interpersonal incompetencies, the neoconservatives are more likely to attribute them to moral deficiencies. For the neoconservative, individual and groups fail because of the lack of will, of desire to achieve, of drive, of the appropriate moral and social values. Failure is due to laziness, welfare dependency, a love of low life pleasures, and the like. The failed individual or group lacks self-respect and is not interested in striving for social respectability as defined by middle-class norms and behavior. Thus, according to this logic, as Lewis further continues, success comes to be understood as being within the grasp of any individual who possesses the will and develops the necessary competence to succeed. Alternately, failure or visible disadvantage comes to be understood as the price an individual must pay for personal dissolution and or incompetence. So that's what they're trying to say. They're saying in America, look, man, anybody can be successful. Anybody can be successful. All you have to do is have the will and to qualify, have the will and abilities, and you can be successful. But that's not the case, family. That's not the case. That's not the case. So moving on to 842. You have anything on this page, sis?
Yeah, I just want to read that paragraph where it says, obviously this line absolves, or what they say, when they try to absolve white people of their role in white supremacy. Obviously this line absolves whites and the white supremacist establishment of all historical and contemporary blame and reparative responsibility for the subordination and deprivation of blacks. So yeah, I just want to read that because basically the rest of the paragraph, just kind of goes into
Go ahead, sis, read it.
Okay. Under the rationalizing regime of this argument, white-dominated society is assumed to be fairly egalitarian and benign. Its very structure and functionality are perceived as having significant formative impact on the personal and group morals, virtues, and competencies thought to be crucial for individual and collective success. The Black neoconservative establishment, with its apparent need to rationalize its lack of ethnic connectiveness and identity, its refusal to acknowledge and repay its debt to Black community activism, its refusal to take responsibility for helping to liberate the community from white domination, and its desire to enjoy the fruits of the good fortune bequeathed it by the death of numerous Black martyrs, to the cause of racial justice and equality, undisturbed by the crying needs of contemporary African peoples, wants to convince Black Americans that in America, opportunity is virtually unlimited and that limitations are not inequitably imposed on them by the functional imperatives of contemporary white American racism and capitalism. Woo!
Mm.
Oh, that would be what's his name? Armstrong Williams. Woo! That's some old biscuit eating for you right there.
Yeah, that's it. That's true.
Goodness. I'll be ready to vomit anytime I hear him speak. Yo, that whole paragraph got his face on it. This is I be going, what? He just be going talking about there's nothing that you can't achieve, there is no racism. Oh man, you just be wanting to like strangle him.
Yeah, that's that bull, sis.
Yeah.
Did you see what that Yvette, how she attacked Claude Anderson? Did y'all see that? How she got his how he filed for bankruptcy? She put that on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I gotta check that out. It's on her page, Brother Travis.
Yes, I'm gonna put the link in here right now.
Yeah, if you go to that, I was floored. I was like, oh no.
She went in on him because she says how he talks about blacks can't do this and do that, and and how you can get how you can get in going business for yourself. And he talks about how we need to set up businesses, and he aligns himself with Boyce Watkins. And here is it. Then she posted his bankruptcy and how he went out and got a white attorney to do his bankruptcy, and she went in
against the black bank.
Yep. Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. She went in.
That was pretty crazy. I was like,
she can't stand Boyce Watkins. Of course, you know that.
Yeah.
Can't stand Boyce Watkins.
Well, she says she's a charlatan.
Yvette Carnell?
Yeah, Yvette Carnell. Yeah, she went in on Claude Anderson.
You know, I'm be nice because on the line. I was gonna say something.
But she got a white girlfriend. I mean, that's her girlfriend.
Oh hell no.
Wait. Well, she said she don't.
Right.
Oh Lord. No.
Help Lord.
but brother, you don't understand, and ladies, y'all knows too. It's hard for me to take anybody that talking about, because like the brother boy said, if you're not bringing up the table, you're destroying. And like what she did in that video, and I just watched that 2-hour video. I'm probably said it's amazing how Amos was said in his book, that these are the people that we should be watching out for.
Mm-hmm.
She don't bring no sushi to the table, but I talk about shit down everything else.
That's right.
And not only that, she's a feminist and a lesbian.
You know what? We're gonna definitely get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We definitely.
And much as I don't want to get in my rant, but when I look at it in the day, those I tell people, you keep a distance from them people,
right?
Especially them.
And at least he tried.
They are weapons of destruction.
Right. At least he did step out there. Exactly. At least he did step out there and try to do something. I remember when Dr. Claude Anderson it was a fish market that he tried to set up, as like a distributor, set up like a fish distributor selling fish. At least he did try to step out there,
Yeah, and sometimes businesses fail. I mean, I'm not in agreement with everything, that she said on that. Actually, I thought, I wasn't in agreement with her going in on him like that. I mean, it was good information to know. Bankruptcy is a part of business, but
that's right.
He's had several business. He's got some other stuff, that might not have worked out. But right. I do think that sometimes, the approach on I like when they as far as employment, wages, and things like that, when they delve off into anything dealing with African history, I'll be like, nope, because she's largely wrong on a lot of that stuff.
Right. She doesn't like anybody who aligns themselves with Dr. Boyce Watkins, who really is. She was just locking in Boyce Watkins, you know, with Dr. Claude Anderson. Anybody
Right.
that locks in with him, she's gonna come after him.
Wow.
Who is this chick we talking about?
Yvette Connell.
Okay.
I mean, they got a lot of data.
That's what I
see the
was
link?
wondering. Like, who the hell are they talking about?
Do y'all see the link?
I see the link. I'm gonna check it out.
Okay.
Do you have the Brother Travis? Do you have that report? Was it that 36-page report? I've been looking for that.
No, I don't have that.
Where they break down the wealth, gap with Sandy Darity.
No, I didn't get that.
Yeah, we can talk about it later. We need to keep it moving here.
Absolutely, sis. Absolutely. So I want to find a paragraph on 843. It says that it is important to note that the Black neoconservatives generally ravel in making insidious comparisons between American Blacks and various immigrant groups, even Black immigrant groups who have achieved economic and professional success while native-born Black Americans presumably have lingered behind. Often this putative situation is explained in terms of the cohesiveness of other groups, their cooperativeness, willingness to work hard, thrift, family values, morals, and the like, compared to the relative impairment or absence of such virtues among Blacks. The Black neoconservative overlooks the fact. And see, when I read this, brother Knowledge Born, I thought about you, because I remember we were on the live stream. This was many moons ago. And, you know, I was saying how, you know, we can do it. And I said, look at the Jews. And I said, you know, look at the Asians. And you said, Dr. Maat, you know, we don't want to compare all these groups. So I guess at that time I was sounding like a neoconservative, right? He says that the Black neoconservative overlooks the fact that even if this argument could be empirically verified, it is of little primary explanatory value. People are not born innately prepared to be what their culture needs for them to be if it is to sustain and advance itself. They must be socialized, i.e., socially conditioned, taught, and trained to be the persons they must be if they are to positively contribute to the well-being of their culture and to their own personal well-being. Members of immigrant groups have been socialized to function as they do. He says, in light of this basic sociological fact, it is the role of the student of Black American social economic behavior not to merely describe Black cultural traits by way of explaining the social condition of Blacks, but to provide a psycho-historical explanation of their evolution and presence among Blacks, of the means by which their traits were and are conditioned and socialized in Blacks by and within the context of the larger white-dominated American society. Furthermore, it is the role of the student to analyze and explain how these traits, how the traits he attributes to Black Americans, putative traits such as laziness, apathy, disunity, etc., are not only induced in them by their American experience, apparently since they have nothing to do with their Blackness, since other Black immigrants do not exhibit them, but what political, economic function they serve in maintaining America's white-Black power differential and the American racial status quo. Finally, after such analyses are completed, it is incumbent that alternative socialization processes, social and institutional arrangements, reconstructed racial attitudes and relations be prescribed so as to re-socialize Black Americans in ways which will transform their advantages to their disadvantages to advantages. I had to read that paragraph.
Hey, Dr. Maat.
Yes, sir.
He wrote that shit.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So we sit there and we point fingers and we say, look at these other groups and look what they're doing. That then supposed to say, hey, they've been socialized to function the way they do. And so maybe we as a collective had to revamp, you know, our socialization processes.
That's right. And I would never say you would ever sound like that, Dr. Maat, for the record, you know, for the record.
Well, thank you for I felt like
it becomes, you know, observer's bias. You see what I'm saying? You look at the situation and, you know, from your observation, you can see out, you know, and then you can see out at these satellite nations, because this is what you see. You see ambassadors in small groups of nations They have nation states that they're attached to, and they're working in the best interest of their nation, economically. You see what I'm saying? Socially, politically, they move in a way that's beneficial to their nature because they're looking at their nation long term. You see what I'm saying? So now you're dealing with a nationalist people that have been admixed. You see what I'm saying? Into a place, a science experiment to the highest degree. You see? And then placed in a place and say, hey, look, the one who is beating you, the one who is destroying you, that's why I said this abusive relationship, the one who is responsible for your destruction is saying, hey, you could get out of this. All you got to do is just believe in yourself. You understand? Like, what do you mean? Like, my ancestors were poor immigrants. You see, they came over here, and you see that Dr. Amos Wilson spent a hefty time describing that experience as false. But if we don't know this information, people can just tell you that, and you'll go off of it based off that observer's bias. We've been socially integrated, socially assimilated, and we never achieved any type of status of dealing in equality. You see what I'm saying? We've only seen inequality. You know, like the speech says, we ain't seen no American dream. We only know the American nightmare. But we're being sold the nightmare as if it's a dream. You see what I'm saying? So through the socialization and the disconnection to our true nation, you know, Africa and those who identify with this landmass of being Aboriginal, even with your Aboriginal ties, look at the stories that were told about your ancestors. So you have no connection to in the first part to even most cases, be it your father and your mother, those sides of your family. You know, then you talk about grandparents, forget about it. Most of us, in the case where we got our grandparents, that was in place of our parents. You see what I'm saying? So we have to really think and analyze this and how we're socialized to be, you know, unemployed, unemployable. So you can go to prison, so you can go to the mental ward, and so you can go to the cemetery. You understand? These are all businesses that profit off of Black death. And all of these satellite nations that are surrounding us and converting us are at war with us. You see what I'm saying? And they're here to claim Black life because Black life is power. Black lives matter to those who profit off of them. Understand that. So the Koreans and the Asians, the Arabs and the Indians, they all should have damn Black Lives Matter t-shirts on in reverse because they profit off of our suffering, off of our degradation. And then say, hey, you know, look at these people that came over here from the islands. That's how you war going on. You said, look at these people came over here from the islands. They ain't got no problems. Look at these people coming from the continent. They ain't got no problems. What are you talking about? Black man, woman, and child in America, you're just lazy. You understand what I'm saying? And then they get bastards like Spike Lee to put it in the movie. You see what I'm saying? Like, you know, talking about those Koreans who came over there off of the boat just a few years ago and the advantages they have, they already got a business. And then he turns it inward. Instead of looking outward, he turns it inward. You see what I'm saying? So when we start to look for these people with signs of consciousness in regards to this leadership topic, we got to see what message are they sending out to us to see about ourselves, and what message about the enemies of our people that are surrounding us and converging us and sucking the life force out of our being. You see what I'm saying? And we are fortifying them and fortifying their rise and future generations' rise as well to be dominant over us. We got to ask those questions.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So on page 845, he goes on to talk about, he's like reiterating like the whole Black neoconservative argument. You know, they believe that if the Black man can demonstrate his worth, proves himself worthy of the white man's respect, he will be accepted as an equal in the white man's domain and live happily ever after, right? And Brother Travis, he actually says this is harking back to some of the preachments of your boy Booker T. Washington. Washington believed the same thing, that if we proved ourselves worthy of the white man's respect, then we can live happily ever after in the white man's domain. Yeah. All right. So they also, you know, Black neoconservatives also argue that, you know, that America has abundant opportunities, that Black people just have to qualify for those opportunities. They also argue that Black people can depend on the beneficent white-dominated economic system to meet their needs if only they behave appropriate. So they criticize the behavior of Black people. All right. So I'm at 846 at the top. He defines a social system, and he says to us that, you know, a social system is a system of social relations, a system of persons and groups and institutions systematically interacting according to societal and cultural commonalities, identities, commitments, obligations, reinforcements, regulations, and expectations. At the bottom, and I have this marked as powerful, he says that under modern capitalism, society itself becomes little more than an impersonal arena of private interest. Sister Alima, we talk about this a lot. He says that under modern capitalism, society itself becomes little more than an impersonal arena of private interests, of people devoid of strong communal bonds, living for individuated, it says, rather than collective needs. Organic links dissolve before the rationalized, restless demands of the market society, divested of functional productive tasks and communal relations, other than the necessity of having to earn money and consume. Individual often has a difficult time finding him or herself. That's a fact, that we so caught up in this daggone capitalistic system that we just think about making money and consuming. Most of us can't even answer the question, who am I, right? The need to discover who am I, a preoccupation unknown to many earliest societies, is mistakenly treated as an inferior personal matter having nothing to do with the way society is organized, implicit in the quest for one's individuality, right? Because that's right, everybody wants to be an individual. So we think individualistically and not communally, right? So it says in one's individuality is a dubious notion that the individual exists as something abstracted from the social matrix, apart from the web of tasks, obligations, affections, and collective relationships which give people their identity, their social meaning, and their experience of humanity and of themselves. See, I always tell my children, there's no such thing as me and mine. It's ours. You sit there and say, I'm just worried about me and mine, but guess what? You and yours had to go out here and function in a society with other people. So you just can't take care of you and yours. You got to take care of people outside of your door. All right. I remember there was a sister in Baltimore. Her son was murdered. You can look it up. Type in Victorious murdered in Baltimore City. This sister is conscious. We call her mama, a conscious elder around here. Raised a powerful king. And he was 17 when he was, I think he was 17 or 18 when he was murdered. And you know, he wasn't a street guy. He was a conscious guy, very African-centered guy. And he was murdered on his way home. And I remember the sister crying. And she looked me in my face and she said, Dr. Maat, there's no such thing as that. She said, you can do all you can to raise these powerful, and she was talking about my son. She said, you can do all you can to raise them to be powerful people. But if you forget about the children on the outside, those children might be the murderers or the robbers or the rapists of your children.
That's true. That's true. That's true. That's true.
And so anyway, he says, thus people search for autonomy and seek to free themselves from emotional dependency upon others without questioning whether such an accomplishment is, in the deepest human sense, desirable or possible. Finding so many of their social relations to be loveless, exploitative, and opportunistic, people mistakenly seek to build an individualized autarky to find liberation in a composed isolation. Yet the question remains for all groups of person, liberation towards what? So he goes on to say that individualism, nomadic individualism, will neither enhance the security of Blacks nor necessarily heighten the quality of their lives. This is made clear by the fact that the rise to material well-being and prominence by a sizable class of Black American professionals who haughtily designate themselves as Americans or more abstractly as human beings, and the rise to power of an African ruling elite has been attended by the rapidly accelerating decline into poverty and powerlessness of the Black American and the African masses. That's true. We got our Oprahs, we have our Jay-Z's, right? We have them. You know, we have the Black bourgeois. But while we have these select few people getting this, what we call success, right? The money and the material wealth, you have a huge class of people who live in poverty and who are powerless. All right. So individualism will not our subscription, or when we subscribe to the myth of individualism or the ideology of individualism, that will not advance us as a collective, because we have individuals who are powerful. But remember, it's not about the individuals being power, it's about the group power. That's what we want. We want social power, not individual power, social power. Mm-hmm. Once we have social,
they have money.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, sis.
I was gonna say they have money, but they don't have any power.
Absolutely.
Because anytime that structure decides to take it, they do.
It's gone.
They break them back down to their essence. It's
Cosby.
Because you don't have a group, you don't have any social power within your group. That's why they're able to do that.
Mm. Nice.
So you're really just out there by yourself with your, trinkets from the dominant society. You just got a bunch of trinkets.
Cosby.
Wow. I heard him yell Cosby twice. I was in here trying to hold it in. He said Cosby.
Cosby.
They get ready to take all that money. Woo!
Oh man.
So they're gonna milk him. It's gonna take a while. Take all his money. Take a while.
It amazes me how Bill Cosby got all that love from the going down there. Used to go to homecomings down there in Atlanta, and he and all the black colleges they gave that money to Spelman and all the black bourgeoisie. How he was in that circle. When he got in trouble, all them people disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
All those elite black people down there. You don't hear him mention Bill Cosby like he never existed. And him and his wife gave all that. Yeah, him and his wife gave millions to Spelman and Morehouse.
Oh yeah.
Because they ain't got no power. They got no power either, and they going broke. Without him, they probably go broke. I mean, be out of business.
No code at all.
That's right.
And for white people, the same thing like that. But when it comes to us, they say, "Oh shit, let me step away from this dude, man. He looks
That's
like
right.
That's right. Do something, man." Tell us we have no code when it deals with one of ourselves. That's why we not winning, man. European, no matter what they do, they still us. No, and if they say we gonna survive, that's you dreaming.
That's right. And they make excuses for those who finance them. If it's a white man and he did some dirt, but he financing and he's a power base for resources for their institutions, they make excuses for him.
Yep.
They find a way to get him free.
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of defending him. I mean, first of all, they kind of broke the law because they wasn't supposed to be able to use that deposition. They tricked him basically, into doing that and telling and saying what he did, and then they used it in this last trial, which they weren't supposed to be able to do. So they pulled all the stops out to get him. They broke the law. And if you ever seen pictures of those women, all them women are like criminals. One of them was the disbarred lawyer, and I mean, it was just like people that they would, normally where you wouldn't even pay attention to, as far as the lives that they were leading.
And they got Tavis too.
Yeah, brother Travis. I thought, they sure did get Tavis.
They got Tavis.
But he fought back. That brother fought back. Yeah. He didn't. You weren't just going to knock him out and slander him in the media. He went out there and he fought back.
That's right.
Yeah, he didn't.
All right. So at the bottom it says the neoconservative pose the problems of African Americans and their solution in terms of personal and familiar character, ethics, morals, and behavior deportment. Their concern is not with the problems of power, but with demonstrating presumed moral and characterological deficiencies of Black people with moral abjurations, idealistic preachments, and vacuous political diatribes. Moreover, since these minions, we call them minions of white conservative establishment will not bite the hand that feed them, white conservative foundations and think tanks, they dare not challenge white power with Black power. They cannot present a Black America with proactive proposals for African liberation and empowerment, only reactionary and accommodative ones. They achieve victory over white racism by simply denying its existence as a threat to the well-being of the survival of African peoples everywhere, a threat only to become overcome by Black empowerment. So assimilation is say, hey, let's just integrate and let's strive to let's strive or fight for full participation in their system in order for us to survive and prosper in the system. Now, neoconservatives, what they say is it doesn't exist. So they deny the existence of racism, white racism. Now we're getting into what I love, which is Black nationalist leadership. So at the beginning, Sister Camille, I want you to read his definitions of nationalism so we'll know exactly what it is. So since you take it from here.
Okay. Nationalism is an idea.
And family, this is the last section. Hold tight. We are almost finished. I see we got folks coming in and out, but hold tight. We're almost finished. This is the last section, and this is a powerful section because now we're going to be talking about Black nationalism. Let's go, sis.
Nationalism is an ideology of 1,000 faces. While we all may have a similar sense of what it involves, we cannot all agree on any one definition of it. As an ideological and political concept, nationalism is related to the equally unwieldy concept of nation, rooted in the prefix nate, to be born. Nation implies an entity composed of persons who are born or adopted members of a people who share a common language, territory, economic life, worldview, a set of social experiences, values, thinking, and behavioral orientations. The word nation is an abstract symbol which is evoked and utilized to elicit certain concrete states of consciousness and to legitimate numerous social actions and movements, often having very diverse aims. I'm going to read the following paragraph. Nationalism in this perspective is the political utilization of the symbol nation through discourse and political activity, as well as the sentiment that draws people into responding to this symbol's use. Nationalism is a quintessentially homogenizing, differentiating, or classifying discourse, one that aims its appeal at people presumed to have certain things in common as against people thought not to have any mutual connections. In modern nationalisms, among the most important things to have in common are certain forms of culture and tradition and specific history. That denotes a lineage. Page 8. Basically, he kind of outlines what it is to be a nation. At the bottom, the power generated by nationalism is the bane and harbinger of destruction to those who wish to establish or maintain imperial control over other peoples. So what he's saying is that one of the ways that, the reason that they discourage nationalism in Black people is because they want to maintain their control and, oppression over you. And by confusing you as to who you are as a people, they're able to maintain control. This is the main reason it is defamed vociferously by imperialistic peoples and nations, despite the fact that it is the main instrument of their own domination of other peoples and nations. Woo!
Absolutely. So he's saying that nationalism, sis, is an instrument of power. So he's saying it's used to either oppress people or to liberate people, right? Or overthrow people, right? So nationalism is an instrument of power. He also says that the central basis for assuming a sense of nation is ethnicity. So it begins with your ethnicity, right?
Yes.
And ethnicity can be defined as what? A group of people. I would say a group of people that share a same culture, same history, culture, landmass, absolutely, lineage, right? So he says one of the central bases for assuming a sense of nationhood may be ethnicity, right? So that's the base of nationalism. So anyway, Dr. Amos Wilson says at the next section, he says, why Black nationalism? And he goes on
to read that?
Yes, start it off, King.
All right. Black nationalism is a double-edged sword. It can be wielded as a tool of oppression by cohesiveness, organized people, or nation state such as those of Western Europe, who use it to impose their exploitative rules over many non-European nations and people, or by white Americans to enslave and otherwise dominate Black Americans. It can also be used as a tool to organize and oppress people, nation state, to best next page, achieve their liberation from oppression and or to achieve sovereignty or self-determination and to gain control of the national territory. While the nationalism of some people of nation state may be evoked and utilized to realize some racial sense of superiority or manifest destiny, or to motivate one group to commander and exploit the resource of another, the nationalism of some people or nation state is invoked and utilized to liberate themselves from their oppressor exploitation by imperialism, people or nation states to increase and realize their inherited social, economic, political, social, economic potential without necessarily implying that they are racially superior to or intended to dominate other people or other states. The former nationalism intends to achieve or maintain national self-determination while denying that status to others and is so far as it's able to do so. The later nationalism intends to achieve and sustain national self-determination and imperialism by denying autonomy or independent nationhood to others. Thus, the nationalism, by definition and intention, is not a monolithic concept, and therefore all nationalism are not the same or are equally racially or politically promiscuous or counterproductive as some Eurocentric and liberal intellect and government spokesperson would have us believe. Let me stop. You want me to continue? Let me stop.
I want to define at the bottom paragraph what Black or African nationalism is. He says that it is of the second variety, a nationalism of liberation and self-determination, not of conquest and domination. So, you know, when we talk about Black nationalism, a lot of white folks believe that we want to rise up and oppress them or do whatever to them. No, Black or African nationalism is he says, it's a nationalism of liberation and self-determination. We're not trying to conquest and dominate them, even though that's their form of nationalism, right? He says it is premised on the precept that Blacks as a people should not be the subjects of another people, nor should they subject other people. That Black peoples and nations should exercise their full rights to develop and utilize their material, human, and spiritual resources primarily for their own benefit and for the well-being and for their well-being and for the well-being of, and not for the well-being of others as they, oh, I'm sorry, guys. It says primary resources primarily for their own benefit and well-being and for the benefit and well-being of others as they see fit to do. Their view, their personhood and humanity, their nationality, their ethnicity as equal to that of any and all other persons or peoples, that they are not the inferiors of others and are not destined by God or man to exist in forced servitude to others. And when and if and for however long they may be willfully subjected to the domination of others, they are commissioned by their inalienable right to freedom as human beings to resist such domination and overthrow it as soon as humanly possible. This is the bedrock credo of Black nationalism today as it manifests in the United States of America across the diaspora and in the world. So he says, to paraphrase John Jacques or Rasul, the African is born free, but is everywhere in chains. He goes on to say at the top of page 851, Black nationalism recognizes the power of African peoples to achieve liberation and self-determination lies within their grasp. African liberation and self-determination will not and cannot be willed or given to African people by non-African people. They must be won through the self-sustained exercise of power generated by African themselves. And he's saying that, and then he goes on in the next paragraph, I'm not going to read it, but he says that the primary tools used by Black or African nationalists is breaking the chains of subordination of African peoples to other peoples, right? So he's saying that some of the tools they use to subordinate us and to subjugate us is number one, the falsification of our consciousness. Now, Dr. Amos Wilson has a book entitled The Falsification of African Consciousness. We're definitely
I read.
Powerful. Yes, me too.
We're definitely gonna read that. But that was one of the major tools that they used in order to subjugate us and to make us subordinates, you know, so the falsification of our consciousness. And also they conditioned us to behave in self-defeating and self-destructive ways. And he says that combined with material and social deprivations imposed on Africans under the guise of European economic and military powers. So basically he's saying the falsification of our consciousness and the fact that they condition us to behave in self-defeating and self-destructive ways. And we're also deprived materially and socially. So these are the ways that they were able really to subdue us as a people. So the next type of nationalism that he discussed is Black cultural nationalisms. And he says that Black cultural nationalism focuses on the rectification of falsifications of African history and culture. Efforts in this regard on the part of many prominent past and contemporary Black nationalists have been referred to as Black cultural nationalism, in contrast to what we might refer to as Black economic nationalists. And when I read this, Brother Travis, I thought of people like Dr. John Henry Clark. I thought of people like Dr. Ben and the like, right? As Black cultural nationalism, because they were trying to rectify the falsifications of African history and culture, all right? So he defines that to be so, and he says the impact of resuscitated African and Black American history and culture has been remarkably significant and culturally revolutionizing the mind, consciousness, and behavior of many in the community today, all right? But he goes on to say that let's not hasten to add that Black nationalism has always had a significant constituency in the African-American community. This constituency tends to expand during periods of crisis and contract under the heavy-handed influences of a combination of state welfarism, concessional white liberalism, allied with Black assimilationism per organizations like the NAACP, the National Urban League, and other civil rights organizations, and perhaps better economic times. And that's a fact that when something happens, then we all want to be Black powered out, right? So when there's an atrocity, when someone commits an atrocity against, we want to be Black powered out. So he's saying that, you know, it expands during periods of crisis, you know, and it contracts, you know, at times, especially when, you know, economic times roll around. He says cultural nationalism has to a measurable extent even penetrated the consciousness of traditional civil rights leadership. The tentative embrace of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan by the head of the NAACP, Chavis, and by assimilationist leaders and some leading ministers in the institutional Black church seem to indicate that the message of Black nationalism is being listened to, if not put into practice, by Black establishments, which not so long ago patently disavowed its preachments. So now he's going to start talking. The next section is going to dive into contemporary Black nationalism. He says absence of organizations, creed, and plans. And I got to be honest, panel, when I read this title, I said, I thought about the conscious community. I can't even lie. I thought about the conscious community. He said contemporary Black nationalism, the absence of organizations, creed, and plans. All right. So I'm at the bottom paragraph, Sister Camille, of 853, on page 853. Can you read where it says cultural nationalism and Black nationalism in general?
Okay, the Black nationalists have, down at the bottom, the cultural nationalists are concerned with returning to the old African culture and thereby regaining their identity and freedom. In other words, they feel that the African culture will automatically bring political freedom. Woo!
Come on, come on.
Yeah, I had all this highlighted too. We believe that this somewhat magical thinking, while of utmost importance in restoring the critically wounded African ego to vital health, has retarded the equally important ability of the nationalists to provide the political rationales, theories, developmental plans, working organizations, and systems to enable African peoples to regain their sovereignty and to enhance their well-being and standing in the world.
Hey, Dr. Maat, real quick.
Wow.
Sister Camille, just real quick. Let me say this. I think remarks like that, statements like that, is what kept Dr. Baba Wilson from really making it as far as so-called making it in the conscious community, because he would challenge us. He would challenge brothers and sisters in the conscious community with those kind of statements. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, y'all, I hear what y'all saying, but we need to make it practical and make it, you know what I mean? And a lot of cats in the conscious community couldn't get with him when he would make statements like that.
Well, you know,
that's knocking their heart.
Well, you know, when I look back in this so-called conscious circle that was constructed and engineered, regardless what happened to it now and back then, now that, you know, I think it's diverse into what our people should be doing already, and take it a step further. What we're seeing right now is, I would say, a dumbing down, where, you know, it's now more talk, no more action. And if there was any action, if Amos was around, he would sit there and call it out what it is. I mean, some of these people that were around back then, we would not be seeing a conscious circle that we see today.
Absolutely.
This is like a serious breakdown. This is a well fought pound that even when he was gone, that was like 2 decades ago, to where we see his conscious circle was starting to rise in the 2000s, whatever. That it is what it's supposed to be. It is a diversion.
You're absolutely right, brother. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, go ahead.
And because I come from the 80s, I've been in this movement since the mid 80s. When Dr. John Henry Clark and Yosef Ben Yaakov was here, John G. Jackson, all the elders was here, and they was intact and they was on the scene. You didn't see all these fake groups. You know what I mean? All these fake, come with that fake Kemetic ideologies, meaning they're creating these cults out of the Kemetic science. When Dr. Ben was alive, you didn't see a lot of these people that you see on the scene today. They waited till Dr. Ben got old in the nursing home, and they came out with a lot of that foolishness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because you can't exist.
That's right.
You can't exist with the truth like that.
That's right. I done seen him beat up people. I done seen people come with, talking about astrology and all that. Dr. Ben didn't like it to come with talking about no astrology. He get in and all that metaphysical stuff. Dr. Ben didn't play that.
Yeah, that's considered pseudoscience.
Yeah, he didn't like that. Dr. Ben was, you come with your research, available knowledge, and also with, with the science mixed with something that you've been ancient Kemet and you studied some, some
Dogon.
Dogon, yeah, Dogon. You studied some real knowledge. You studied real knowledge.
You can't have metaphysics without actual real science.
That's right. That's right, sister. And
you just can't have that alone.
Yeah, that brother, brother Cash, you nailed it on the money. When those elders left, a lot of these fake groups came on the scene.
And there was a attendant. So when they talk about these agents, I said, well, the way how we see how this is going, it looked like it is. We got this called as is, because when people talk about this, that it's intended for this. Because let's say if these guys pass down the knowledge to real respectful people that's like your age or maybe in their 30s, then we know it will be taken more at a step further than just talking about what people did back in old days. It will be practical actual, so we take what we're going to know back there and apply it something more now. This right here, it's like they talk about theorizing, talking about this, that, and then trying to wait for the next debate. Now, how the fuck this gonna fix our situation where people are starving? People can't pay their life, and you up for diverting, trying to create another lecture. These elders didn't do no lectures; they were teaching. They didn't
But at the same time, we need to understand. This is what I'm saying. Just to give honor to Baba Wilson, is he was able to tie. I believe the spiritual, because we are a spiritual people.
Yes.
Okay? We're very, that comes from our ancient Kemetic.
Yes.
It's in our melanin to connect to the universe. That's just in us. Whether some folk recognize their melanin or not, we are that. But at the same time, he was able to say, okay, look, even though we can connect to the metaphysical, let's understand what's going on in how can I say it? Make this relevant to what's going on in the blocks within where you live at. you got Chinese folks living in your community where you know you should have Black-owned businesses. So take that metaphysical stuff, manifest it into the reality, and go buy that business where those Chinese folks is inhabiting your community.
That's real.
You know what I'm saying? So, but you got some cats that are, like they say in the church, so heavenly minded, but they know earthly good. So let's try to make that melanin make sense for where you live at and bring some money in your communities. You know what I'm saying? I think Baba Wilson tried his best in the space and time in which he lived to make that make sense to us. But I think some brothers were fighting him on that because they wanted to be all in this other realm. You feel what I'm saying?
But see, the Africans never separated science and spirituality. That's
Right.
a good concept. If you look at the pyramids, it's a spiritual concept, meaning that it's aligned with Orion's belt, but yet it's mathematically precise in its alignment.
Beautiful.
You know, we never separated and said, well, this is going to be spirituality and this is going to be science. We got that from the Europeans.
That's why I said. That's why I said you can't have one without the other.
Can't have one without the other. There you go, sister.
That's
right.
a fact. That's a fact. Sister Camille, where did you stop reading that? Since I'm on 853.
Let me see. I stopped at the paucity of intellectual vision.
Wow.
I don't see that. What's that 853? I don't see it.
I thought I was on 854.
Just that term alone.
Yeah, Paul.
Wait.
That's
oh no, so we skipped some stuff.
I think we're at the reactionary compensatory blackness and Africanicity.
Oh, compensatory. You know who that sounds like? Fuller.
That's what we because this is powerful, and this is like we're on the last couple of pages, and I want the people to really get this information. But that's where the reactionary compensatory. So
Black nationalists have rightly responded to Eurocentric white supremacist assaults on the collective body, mind, soul of African people. However, their response has too often involved a reactionary obsession with demonstrating the equality of African humanity, the primal and extraordinary accomplishments and qualities of African history and culture. Woo, smoking. While re-educating the African community about its true history and culture and true nature of white imperialism and racism, contemporary Black nationalism has demonstrated inadequate concern with organizing effective means of overthrowing political, economic oppression of the community by whites and other ethnic groups.
Facts.
That is
so. Read by Huey P. By Huey P. Newton. Read this one.
Huey Newton's critique of cultural nationalism still seems apropos, even if a bit overstated. The cultural nationalists are concerned with returning to the old African culture and thereby regaining their identity and freedom. In other words, they feel that the African culture will automatically bring political freedom. We believe that this somewhat magical thinking, while of utmost importance in restoring the critically wounded African ego to vital health, has retarded the equally important ability of the nationalists to provide the political rationales, theories, developmental plans, working organizations, and systems to enable African peoples to regain their sovereignty and to enhance their well-being and standing in the world. The militant retreat, the critique originally leveled against cultural nationalism by Robert Allen, still holds true for an important segment of the nationalist community.
And hold on, family. I want y'all to get this because this is powerful, sis. So go ahead, sis. Read this quote. This is powerful.
Alan Abid correctly points out that the belief that Black culture and art and the mere individual and group reclamation of African culture and identity alone will somehow bring about a solution. Has allowed a passive retreat into Blackness on the part of some of those revolutionaries. He goes on to say these so-called Black revolutionaries.
Oh man, she's breaking up, and this is powerful.
By how? I gotta say that again. These so-called Black revolutionaries measure their militancy by how much Black awareness they have or how bad they can talk.
Come on.
Oh, verbal militance thus replaces action, and the net result is passive non-resistance to oppression.
Wow.
Woo-hoo. Black culture becomes a badge to be worn rather than experience to be shared.
Now that's
whoa, man.
So he's saying that verbal replaces action. And I thought about the conscious community. That's so-called conscious community. So, you know, we sit here, we talk about all the knowledge that we have and Black power this and fuck the crack of that and bang on the beast that. But what the hell are you doing? Nothing. I mean, let's be real. What are you doing? Nothing.
YouTube marketing. That's all.
Listen, it's money, brother. Input. It's money. It's not talking about no revolution. Listen, the more these guys get more fame and stuff, the more they want to get acceptance in bed with their oppressor.
That's right.
See, we gotta call it out as it is, man. This ain't real, man. When people talk about body, but they ain't talking about it. Sounds good, but when you look at it, when you say, "Oh, you got Patreon," and see the watch this pay for this. That's what I'm glad what the Beast is doing. See, as much as we hate the Beast, I gotta give credit to the Beast because the Beast is now cutting off these Negroes' resource. You know, I can make your $10 on YouTube North. All that nice talking. Now when they cut us, say, what you gonna do? Now we're gonna see, are you about that or are you just sitting there just to show, just to make money?
That's right, because that's what they're trying to do. That's right, Chaos. Because you know, you put that advertising in there and you get a certain amount of views, they'll cut you a check, YouTube. Yeah, that's a lot of them are marketing, using Black talk, but really trying to get like you're saying, getting views and getting people to chat on there, make comments so they can get a paycheck. Some of them don't have, you know, any type of, you know, systematic gainful employment. I'm not saying a job necessarily.
They have no real economics, brother.
There you go. There you go.
It's like this. I see a lot of these guys make these channels, and I always ask the question: where are you taking this channel? Are you taking to make an actual outlet, or are you here just to suck up money from advertising YouTube and waste Black people's time for a paycheck? It's another way of getting out of the plantation and jumping into another small plantation, which is not building no power whatsoever.
That's right.
And like Amos was said, you have to attain power. And if it's not in that direction, you're wasting your time.
And they're talking about they don't work for the white man. If YouTube cut them off, they'd be lost.
Come on.
Listen, they'll be right there. They'll be right there tomorrow, filling out the application. Can you hire me, Mr. Charlie? So they get the fuck out of that shit.
That's
and they complain about other people doing what? That's get the fuck out of my face.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
He said Mr. Charlie.
Right?
That's right.
Oh, man. So, Sister Camille, let's go. We got 3 pages. Let's go. So the paucity of intellectual vision. So, you know, in this section, and we don't have to read the entire section. At the beginning of the section, Dr. Amos was talking about the lack and disregard for the intelligentsia. That's what he's talking about at the beginning of this particular section. But hold up, y'all. I want to read this paragraph panel. And if you don't want to say the names, you don't have to. But who is he describing? Who is he describing with these words? He says the overwhelming popularity of charismatic intellectuals whose acclaim is basically founded on the expose of white racism and racist depravity, and on flattering or uplifting portrayals of African history and culture has unwittingly operated at the cost of submerging Black nationalist intellectuals whose pursuit of broader visions for African peoples are future-oriented, pragmatic, and concerned with dealing directly with the contemporary reality of African life in the Americas and across the diaspora. He says the critique that Cruz made of the role played by the intellectuals in the civil rights movement, that this movement is at an impasse precisely because it lacks a real functional corpus of intellectuals able to confront and deal perceptively with American realities on a level that social conditions demand, applies equally to the current nationalist movement. The same can be said with regard to global realities confronting African peoples worldwide. So he's saying that basically in this paragraph that you have a bunch of charismatic intellectuals, and some of these people I have in my mind, I wouldn't deem them as being intellectuals, but he's saying that they're charismatic, You know, they talk good, they expose white racism, right? And he's saying that these people, you know, oh yeah, and they give you this feel-good history. He calls it flattering or uplifting portrayals of African history and culture. So they give you this feel-good stuff. And he's saying that it's operated, that says, at the cause of submerging Black nationalist intellectuals who pursuit of broader visions for African peoples or future-oriented. So the people that are really trying to do the work, people don't see them. They just see these charismatic folks, these popular folks out there screaming Black nationalism.
I'm gonna call their names out for you, doctor. You have to worry about it.
Don't cut my wisdom, King. So they have these people out here. They're popular. They're charismatic speakers, right? They expose white racism and racist depravity, and then they give you this feel good history. You know, our melanin has superpowers and all of this, you know, bull crap, right? And he's saying that, you know, these people overshadow the real Black nationalist intellectuals who are trying to develop, you know, plans and things. You know, it says that pursuit of broader visions for African peoples are future-oriented, pragmatic, and concerned with dealing directly with our contemporary reality of African life. Now, I know a lot of people who fit this description.
Yes.
I know a few.
Absolutely.
Yeah, listen. This brother, Dr. Amos, call it out. And what we see today is playing out today. Let me call these dudes' name. So that way y'all don't get all scripted. Y'all on YouTube. I'm not. Omar Johnson. Pharaoh.
Oh.
Afro down there.
Oh, yeah.
Who else? We can throw Seti. Cyrus and Seti. I'm throwing names. Don't get me that. Who else? And I can't think of anything else right now, man. So, you know, but you get the point. You know,
it's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, there's a lot, and some of this come to my mind, and you know, but hey, they called it out.
I had to stop watching them, folks. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's a whole bunch of them. Like you said,
too much talking. We need the work, man.
Yeah, it sounds good. To an unlearned person, it sounds good.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, Brett Polite, too.
He's just a con man. He's just a con man.
Yeah, I know he's a con man, but a lot of people
gravitate down, sis. I mean, you can see the look on his face when he went down in flames. I was like, woo!
Ooh. He's a big con man.
Oh, y'all going in tonight.
Yeah, man. They're gonna go back to this. And listen, doctor, they're gonna go back to this and say, you know, I rebuttal what has been said on this so-called blueprint Black Power. The people that call my name out, notice that, you know, these people. You stay away from these Negroes. They are ages. Calling out my name about some section on Dr. Amos. I love respect. As y'all don't respect no elder because we just read it out, and he called it out 20 years ago, and it's now being played out today.
There's people like Jack-led preachers in disguise.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun.
But that's what's powerful about Dr. Wilson. He, you know, again, to reference the church, the brother was very prophetic, man. He was saying stuff 20, 30 years ago. That's literally that we're dealing that me, Dr. Maat, Sister Camille, Brother Chaos, Travis, Sister Lali is, I mean, we all are Lili, excuse me, are dealing with today. I mean, the same vibe. And what's crazy is it's like when you're trying to talk to your people about what's going on today, you can read in this book and it's like, well, there is no more color line. We're all the same, all this bullshit. Oh my goodness. And what he put in this last chapter is exactly what we're up against right now. And we really, like the brother said, like Brother Chaos said, we just got to call it out what it is. These are devils, period. I don't want to, I can't compromise. I can't sit here and try to, you know, conversate with y'all about their rationale because we all know their motive, their intent. You know, if you're conscious, you know that. But as soon as you give them a little bit of room, it's a wrap. You can't even give them no little bit of room. Call that shit out, period.
It's true. It's true.
Call it out now, man. As much times, and we all Black family, but we had to call it out. The bullshit, you know.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Even when they talk about say King of Pan Africa, I said, what the fuck is that? There's no fucking king of no Pan African. We are all one nation.
Yeah, the Prince of Pan Africanism.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. I had to sit back and think about it. I said, that is egotistical right there.
Yeah, he called it. And notice nobody's ever part of his organization. He's everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? He don't have he doesn't have any type of infrastructure. How you gonna have a school and those teachers?
Facts. Facts. Say it again.
How you gonna have a school?
A school with no, you know what, and I you know, I have to admit, when the brothers first came out, man, I was like, oh shit, this dude is talking it.
That's right.
And but you know, you gotta like fall back and be like, the ancestors be talking to you, man. You just gotta listen to them. Like, listen, stay away from that motherfucker. It's for real. You just gotta listen. They'll tell you. They'll tell you.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And then he'll always go visit a school like he gonna buy it, you know. And he never, you know, he never closed anything. You know, that's his game.
brother. Also, like this, I know a few Africans that's from the continent, and they follow enough of these cats. And one with we talking about the same prince, right? He said, "Yo, I just noticed this guy was in a jacuzzi." I said, "Hold on, how the hell you talk about this and that art warfare, and you up here exposing where the hell you at and what you doing? It don't sound intelligent." He said, "I had to cut him off quick." I said, "Well, you know, you smart."
I mean, let's finish up, y'all. It's a wrap. It's about.
Sorry.
So anyway, at the bottom of 855, and remember this chapter ends at 858. So we have 3 pages. He says that another setback of black nationalism, he says, is the lack of definition and organization. And this is a major subsection to me, because he's right. Many of us, you know, we lack, you know, a collective definition on what black nationalism is and how to achieve it. You know, you got some people saying that we need to repatriate, saying that we need to exist as a nation within a nation here on American soil. Some people are saying we're Israelites. Some people say that we're Washita folks. Some folks say we're from Kemet. Some folks say, you know, so we do lack definition and thus organization. So he says that the actual empowerment of black people under the banner of black nationalism cannot occur as long as the 2 main ingredients necessary for power, definition, and organization are missing and or underdeveloped. So 856, he says, even if black nationalist motives and purposes were perfectly defined and matched, black power would still prove elusive without organizational appropriateness and a sufficiency of human and material resources. It says the present and past popularity of black nationalistic leaders and spokesmen, writers and lecturers, organizations and groups. It says point to broad support in the African-American community for black nationalist ideological values and goals. He says, however, all of this is for naught without broad agreement on purpose and without a unifying or unified nationalist organization. I'm sorry, I said organization. All right. So the last paragraph in this subsection, it says, despite their decline in relevance as a leadership establishment and the disempowering logic of their ideology, the national scope of their organization has permitted the assimilationists to set the agenda, frame and shape the political, economic, cultural issues of the African-American community. In some, while the assimilationists advocate ideological orientations and programs that have proved not only to be patent failures in certain vital areas, but concretely injurious to the broader economic needs and interests of African peoples, he said they're organized. So even though their ideologies or their ideological orientations don't give us black power, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying that, hey, they've been able to set the agenda, frame and shape our political, economic, and cultural issues because they're organized. The Black Power movement is not organized. You have different sets. You got ISUPK, you got the Hebrew Israelite community, and within the Hebrew Israelite community, you got a bunch of sets, right? Different sets. And then you got the Kemetic community, right? And then there's a lot of stuff going on in the Kemetic community. Then you got the Afrocentric community. You know, it's just we're all over the place. All right. We're all over the place.
No organization.
No,
you don't get nothing done.
No organization.
We ain't disorganized.
So he says that they are organized. They also have white liberal organizational monetary support, while the black neoconservatives are the recipients of white conservative organizational and monetary support. He says the black nationalist leadership establishments which advocates a popular and empowering ideology is largely bereft of the organizational infrastructure which would allow it to garner the monetary and political support of many supporters, sympathizers, and would-be followers. No one supports the black nationalist movement monetarily. It's broke. They're broke. These different sects and these organizations are broke. So anyway, Dr. Amos Wilson concludes his book with a discussion on a black nationalist party. Sister Camille, take it away, sis.
To be maximally powerful and effective, the nationalist movement must first officially and organizationally establish its existence and reason for being. It must organize a national political party and economic system with a solid, well-trained and informed, well-organized base of grassroots organizations on local, state, regional, national, and international levels. On these levels, and especially on the national and international levels, the nationalists must replace the assimilationist and neoconservative organizations as the primary and legitimate leader on behalf of the African American community. They must provide the community with a viable, workable plan for economic development based on a mixed economy of primarily cooperative, self-help economic institutions and collective enterprises, corporate and proprietary businesses. A black nationalist party must provide the training, know-how, and personnel with which to organize the black community nationally. It must organize a black-based political economy which will assume control of the internal communal markets of the community and which can successfully penetrate and effectively influence the national and international marketplace. The Black Nationalist Party must become the primary political arm of the African American community, its chief negotiator with other mainstream and third-party organizations, the principal agency for forming coalitions with other groups, all in furthering the vital interests of the community and protecting its physical, socioeconomic, socio-psychological integrity as mandated by the community. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we have no structure. We have no infrastructure. All our structures are given to us by other people. You know, everything, our education, our food, our, you know, everything. So we can't, if, you know, we don't have anything, we can't affect change. We can have a whole lot of knowledge and, you know, just memorize a whole bunch of books.
That's right.
But, you know, if you can't get people jobs, if you can't employ your own people.
That's where
Bookclub
wins. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So go ahead, sister. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree, because he, you know, he made people sure that people could work.
That's right.
You know, they had skills and they put it all together.
That's right.
You know, for their own common cause.
That's why I like platforms like this, because we can, the information that we're getting from this type of wisdom, we can disseminate information and say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is the blueprint, period. Just like Dr. Maat said, I mean, the book speaks for itself. Just take the blueprint and begin to disseminate this information so that our brothers and sisters can begin to build. Because yes, we are still fragmented. There's a lot going on. And I'm going to take this opportunity to just give a shout out to Meltrek. My 3-year-old is benefiting so much just from Mel. Some people say, well, you know, it's a video, you know, it's a lot of music, but if you listen, there's some serious knowledge being dropped. So there's some jewels being dropped about our people. But with that being said, those are that's the kind of stuff that we begin to share so that the next generation can build up off of and continue on.
Yes, brother.
I appreciate the shout out, King, and I appreciate your words, Brother Impu. I saw the picture. You know, I gotta post the picture. Your son looks so cute. He looks just like you. He looks just like you.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a compliment. I'm not sure.
Handsome little boy. He looked just like him. I said, that's your little twin right there, Brother Impu.
But Dr. Maat, that's where Booker T beats them all. Because what he built, now I don't like Tuskegee's program now. I'm talking about when it was the Institute.
Right.
We have a tangible institution where every aspect of nationhood was developed. They developed, they made their own clothes, shoes, agriculture. You had, of course, you had the guy who created Carver was hot then. George Washington Carver was there. You had they built right all of the structures that was built there because it started as a raggedy church building, and you look at the institutions that they built, the students built on that campus. Now I don't like his politics. I don't like Booker T. Booker T didn't know what he's talking about with politics. He missed it there. You go to Garvey there, but I'm talking about nationhood skills, nationhood tools.
Right.
Washington's ahead of all of them.
Yeah, I can't refute that, Brother Travis. I agree with you.
Yeah, most of us can't make an egg nowadays. I mean,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's gotten worse.
That's right.
It's gotten worse. Some women, they focus on their mind, but they can't even, like you said, boil an egg or even cook something to sustain.
You know how you get ready?
It's getting bad.
When you need new brakes and you get that high pierce.
That's right. Squeaky noise.
That I need to put some WD-40 on my brakes. I was like, you don't put WD-40 on your brakes, brother.
No. It means your pads.
Gonna get active.
No father. I mean,
that's gonna be active.
Like 18 WD-40 on brakes. How you gonna stop?
Right.
I mean, it's just I know men that don't have a hammer. I'm like, you don't have a hammer. Don't know how to use it.
We lost all our nation
here, man.
And that's something. And then white people would contract us to go out and build their houses. Those slaves that prisoners of war. I hate to use the term slave. Prisoners of war. They had the contract. They would contract them out, and they would go out and build houses. Most people don't know Frederick Douglass used to be contracted out to do labor. Before he ran away, but that's what they would do. The so-called slave knew how to build houses, houses, and they had
a lot of skills. And white people shut us down from that.
That day labor. That's where that day labor come from. You know,
yeah, man. Listen, my grandfather. Real talk. My grandfather, man, would. I mean, I know for a fact he probably had according to them, a 5th grade education. But when Grandpa could build a house from the ground up. You hear me? Yes. I mean, you know, didn't have the measurement, didn't use all the measurements, but give him some wood, okay? And these cats would hire him, and he would come fix roofs and all of that. So you're exactly right, bro. And like Sister Camille was about to say, once they found out, wait a minute, let's start taking over these landscaping, let's start taking over this roofing and these material building contracts so that we can exploit and start making money, because those were our jobs, but we just, we were just doing it because it was forced labor. But then white folks started saying, wait, we can make some money off of this, and they pushed us off of that stuff. Yeah, it's sad, man.
And they really sealed the casket by they took away shop classes in school. People used to have all those automotive, wood shop, electrical, all that kind of stuff.
In high school, I know you're talking about,
yeah, they took all that stuff out.
But that's intended because once you start robbing people of what they naturally inherit good at, now you not only create dependency, but now you're now at a position now where you're now useless in all areas. So now when they come in and do what they do, we're very vulnerable. Yes. Remember, this has been a process for the last 150 years.
Yes,
what they did to us, and they have successfully. And I had to give credit; they have successfully done it. And a lot of people, and much times, a lot of us get these degrees. We can't even do like the basic stuff to save our lives.
I agree.
And tell us, say, look how backwards we really are. We keep getting bamboozled every corner. That's why when I fought people and they said, do the same thing over, I said, look what is done. You're in a hamster wheel. You're not going nowhere. We do the same thing, and they did the statistics in the next 30, 40 years. They said us and brown people, we're going to be seriously broke in 20, 30 years. And we never fixed it. How is that possible? Well, let's say this. Everybody does go to school, get their degrees. Well, I can't find jobs. So what they're saying, they're really much on point. And we're not really seeing how is that a reality. We're not really understanding who, what, when, why, how this is going to happen. We just sit there and say, no, we got to see something we're doing is going to lead to that. If you project what's going to happen in the future, then obviously our people are not really paying attention how what we're doing fall the projection of this reality. Like the elder said, we have to create our reality. We can't let them just portray a reality what they want to see us fit. So if they said something, then we gotta go the other way.
All right.
Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Hey, Doctor, final paragraph.
Yeah, that's what parallel institutions. That's where I'm at. Parallel institutions. Parallel institutions. So this is the final subsection or final section of the book. I don't have too much highlighted on the last page of the book, but I do have the bottom of 857 highlighted. Okay. Dr. Amos says that a major problem a nationalistic party must face in becoming actively accepted and supported by the people is its legitimacy. That is, it must exist and act in accord with the consent of the people, according to rules, rituals, traditions, and cultural values established by the people. It is only when a nationalistic party is perceived as morally and materially legitimate by the community that it can accomplish the missions it will be assigned to complete by the people. To a significant degree, the legitimation of a Black nationalist party rests on its ability to arrive at a definition of the vital social economic interests and goals acceptable to the African community in its demonstration that it's capable of realizing those interests and goals in terms of its organizational know-how. In tandem with its own legitimation process, a nationalist party must, to a significant degree, delegitimate its rivals as representatives of the people. While we cannot in this space discuss the number of ways to this delegitimation process can be approached, let us say that in general, it involves the clear pointing out the inability of its political rivals and of the powers that be to adequately define and satisfy the needs of the people. Moreover, the nationalists must clearly demonstrate how current government policy and the policy of their rivals are actually injurious to the people's interests and well-being. All right, the last paragraphs, it says to achieve the necessary credibility and support, it must attain in order to be accepted as the community's legitimate representative party. A Black nationalist party must prove itself capable of resolving important community problems. So at the end of the day, if you deem yourself to be a Black nationalist party or a revolutionary party, people want to know, how can you solve community problems? Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't call yourself a revolutionary and you're not out here revolutionizing anything, right? So the question people want to know is, are you capable of resolving important community problems? If so, you cannot be our representatives. Bottom line. Simple. So at the bottom, the ancestor concludes with this. He says that, let me see, it says this party must be organized under a ratified constitution with a workable system of checks and balances and clearly defined order of election and succession to office. He says, above all, that's what I was looking for. Above all, if it is to be a major instrument of Black power, the Nationalist Party must be fully aware that it is the achievement of genuine Black power, a power which can effectively and successfully rival the power of whites and of any other ethnic group, as well as work with them in the interest of all humankind, which must be its primary goal and reason for being. He says, without power, the people will perish. So he's saying that the ultimate goal of a Black nationalist party would be a party that would help to garner Black power. All right. And so that is
power to the people. Black power.
That's right. Power to the people. So family. Yes, yes, family. So any last remarks on panel members on this channel? I mean, on this chapter, any final remarks on this chapter or the book?
That's I was just saying, you know, we have to have institutions, you know, and you know, have a path together, you know, for our people to thrive within, you know, not just book knowledge.
Absolutely.
You gotta have some institutions, some jobs, you know. Educate your own team.
It's not a matter of knowing what we need to do because we already know. It's just a matter of application.
You gotta do it.
No
application.
Iterations and all that other stuff. It's just application at this point. Like we had so many master teachers. They done taught us everything. We got the blueprints. Please.
Oh, I can't hear you. Go ahead, Sister Lima. You said what, sis?
I was just saying it's just time for application. You know, at this point, there's no more point to keep talking about what we need to do. It's time for application.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Dang, she was smooth with that. Just went with a yawn and just went to sleep. But she dropped some jewels with that though. She right though. I mean, the ancestors gave us a blueprint. We just need to real talk. I mean, it's almost like Julius Erving, Dr. J left the blueprint. Mike picked it up, did his thing. Kobe did his thing. LeBron doing his thing. Real talk. I mean, I'm using that obviously as.
And imagine all those brothers just talking about year after year how great it was that the brother left the blueprint for him for the basketball, but they never picked it up. It'd be like, okay, what's the point? Like, you're gonna pick it up or what? Or are you just gonna keep talking about how great it is?
Deep. It's deep. It's true.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that even throughout all these pages and throughout all these chapters, the one thing is clear that he said it from the beginning to the pretty much end. Either you seek power or you will surely perish. And so there are many civilizations that came and gone. And one thing is clear that a dominant entity comes in to take power. Either you're going to protect yourself and fight what's yours, or, you know, you're going to just perish. And one thing that caught my attention at all, even in the past few pages back, that when the Europeans are they concerned about us as race people trying to attain power and gain power, is not we're going to sit there abuse the world like how they have took the world and turned upside down. We bring a sense of justice. So when Frances Cress was talking about that you must bring a sense of justice, this is what she's talking about. She know for our history, we don't do what other people do in regards to domination. We want to bring a sense of balance, real justice. That's why they can't stand us when they bring their little sick and parasitic views to us. When the real people, instead of following these stupid liberalism, also, you're really supposed to bring a sense of justice. Say, no, that is fucking wrong. And you should do right, you know?
Absolutely.
They have the concept of right.
Right.
They feel that they do disorder.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're getting ready to close out. We've been on this live stream for like 3 hours. I am mentally exhausted. And I'm mentally exhausted. So we're getting ready to close out, family. We are going to be reading another textbook. The textbook is The African Personality in America, an Afrocentric, I'm looking at the book, an African-centered framework by Dr. Kobe Kambon. We will be picking up with that text. I'm going to get in touch with the author, Dr. Kobe Kambon. He teaches over at the University of Ghana. So what I'm going to do is reach out to him to see if we can purchase some copies from him in bulk and get him to autograph the copy. So hold tight. You know, I don't want you to go to Amazon and grab a book. Hold tight, hold tight.
Okay.
Hopefully the folks that are in the chat room or the folks that will listen to this in the archive, hopefully we're friends on Facebook or you're in the RMA Book Club group on Facebook, because once I find out about the book and if we're able to get some autographed copies, I'm definitely going to post it on my Facebook page, which is Deanna Bailey, and I'll be also posting that information in the RMA book club. So again, the text that we will be reading in the next couple of weeks is called The African Personality in America, an African-Centered Framework by Dr. Colby Cambon. So he's going to get into the African personality. How is it constructed? What factors influence it, or institutions that influence it? How are our personalities molded and shaped right here in America? So this is going to be a deep text, family. We're going to go in, but Sister Alima and I had a talk offline, and we were just saying that with Blueprint for Black Power, we examined it, page by page. With this next text is going to be more of a discussion. So we'll read the chapters, and when we come together, we'll discuss it. Of course, we may quote some things that may have stood out in the chapter, but we're really going to discuss the chapter. But with Blueprint for Black Power, our goal was to study it, and so we kind of went page by page. But with this next book, it'll be more of a discussion. So hopefully we'll be on for 1 hour on Sunday instead of 2 hours. So I don't have anything left. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us again, panel. Thank you. We have finished the Blueprint for Black Power, 858-page book, 31 chapters. We are done. But we're not done, because I know that I'll be going back. Oh my gosh.
What the hell?
Right. So we're done, but I know that we're never done with this text, because I'll be using it as a reference book, and I know that many of you will be using it as a reference book. So we'll be going back to it from time to time. So we're never done with the Blueprint for Black Power, right? Dr. Amos Wilson tells us in this book that power is a continuous struggle. And so we'll never be done with trying to garner power and thinking of strategies or utilizing strategies to garner or amass Black power. So Brother Impu wanted to do libations. Go ahead, brother.
I wasn't sure if who had something. If you have just a glass of water or a cup of water or something, let's pour out a libation, if you will, or a moment of silence, whatever you have to do. But obviously, the words that were written on this book are powerful. The homework, the study, the research that this brother did. I mean, he really put some hours in. His life was not that long. So just well respected. He's up there on the Mount Rushmores of Black history. I love this brother. Because of him, I'm connected to you all. I truly believe that. So I'm pouring out a libation as we speak.
Yes.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Much respect. I truly respect all of you all. And as we go forward, Dr. Maat, thank you so much for your wisdom and your love. And to all y'all, peace.
Ashe. Ashe. We say Ashe. Oh, all right. Anything else, Sister Lily? Any last words, Queen?
No, I'm tired, y'all. I appreciate everybody joining us, family. It's been a hell of a journey. That's for sure. I'm exhausted. We'll reconvene, of course, in a couple weeks. We're going to update you guys, see if we can get the books. But I really do appreciate everyone who has stood strong to the end. And the 22 who are watching now, you're the bomb.
Yes, they are. Yes. All right, family. We love you. Peace and power.
Yes.
Take care now. Good night. Till next time.
Ashe.